Constellation is sponsored by Raycon's exceptional everyday earbuds, which I do in fact use every day. Go to buyraycon.com/constellation today. That's BUYRAYCON.com/CONSTELLATION to get 20% off your Raycon order plus free shipping. That's right, you'll get 20% off and free shipping at buyraycon.com/constellation. Again, for your own affordable, high-quality Raycon everyday earbuds, head to buyraycon.com/constellation today.
Constellation, Last Stand Media's conversational podcast, is brought to you by you. If you want to learn how to support our podcast network, head to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Constellation, Last Day Media's conversational podcast. My name is Colin Moriarty. Today I'm joined by a cadre of special people indeed. No Dagan today. I tried to give this show to Dagan so I didn't have to do it anymore. No, really, I wanted Dagan to have more hosting, and I think he's a good host. I kind of wanted him to kind of lead the show. I'd be on it usually, but his computer broke. He texted me this morning that his computer's busted. He's bringing it into some shop. Maybe he'll bring it into some shop like Hunter Biden brought his laptop into a Delaware computer shop, and then there was all sorts of shit on it, and he abandoned it. Some weird stuff going on there in Delaware. It's good to be surrounded nonetheless by a bunch of people here I care a great deal about. Dagan, I care about you too. I just don't know where you are right now. Lord Cognito, good to see you, my friend, in your Sega Dreamcast shirt. Very strong.
Yes,
How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing good, man. Just minding some construction around me, so I may mute a little bit. But no, I'm doing good. Good to see Micah. This will be our second podcast. They try to keep us apart, but they can't stop us.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm trying to pull up the so we have a user that does like statistics for us of all these different things. I'm trying to see cast count. So Cog, this will be your 13th show, I think. Mm-hmm. Matty, where are you on here? Why are you not?
You're not on the statistics.
Oh, here you are. You're 11. This would be your 12th show.
Really? See, I thought it would be way more. I feel like interesting.
And Micah, this will be your 24th.
Wow. The superstar.
This will be my 65th, I guess. This is episode 69, I think, which means I've missed. Whoa, which means I missed 4.
Hey,
the 69 thing kind of bothers me because, like, I get it, but it doesn't really look like that when you do it. You know, like it's more of like a mashing. It's like a 1.
You're just mashing it.
It's like a 9.
Button mashing.
It's just one of the numbers.
So many pause-worthy moments on right now, but we're gonna let it go.
Fair enough. Mr. Matty Plays, good to see you, my friend. Welcome to the show.
Good to see you as well. Excited to do this one. I was looking through the range of topics we have, and we're all feeling a touch bit philosophical today, it seems. At least Cog and I are now. So I'm really excited for this show. And the surprise guest of Micah. I haven't chatted with Micah in a while, so I'm excited about this too. So yeah, good to be here.
Yeah, thank you.
I have sourdough bread that Laylee made, so I'm excited for that as well.
Yeah, good for you, my friend. Always nice to have bread. A little bread. Micah, my wife. My darling wife. Oh, don't you look pretty? Good to see you. How are you today, my dear?
You know, I'm doing very well, and actually, this is perfect because I had something I needed to bring up with a neutral group of people so that I know I'm not crazy. And this is not a dig at Colin. Colin he's not on the same page with me about this. I brought up, and you don't have to get personal with it, I just want acknowledgement. I brought up that sometimes you're in the shower, you're rinsing off the caboose, and your butthole takes like a little sip of water. Mm-hmm. And Colin was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what do you mean you don't know what I'm talking about? You know, it just takes a sip, just a little sip. And Colin was completely lost, did not know what I was saying. You don't have to get deep with it, but I just gotta know, am I crazy? Am I the only one? Is anyone else aware of this
I gotta know the
phenomenon? You can just tell me you're
water
aware of it.
I gotta know the water pressure in your house because like I hose my shit down and I don't feel like I'm taking a sip. I don't know. Is that like an exposed worthy statement for me? But I don't know. I don't feel
Sis, I love you. I never heard this before, so I'm more Colin. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if this is a
Oh, you've never heard that before? Your butthole taking a sip?
I have never heard this. Please educate me
that water
on
pressure
this.
is insane.
That's so interesting.
I don't know. I thought this was something that happened to everyone. It really was one of those moments I said to Colin, like full confidence, you know, when you're in the shower and your butt just takes a little drink, you know what I'm talking about? And he was like, no. And I was 100% like, everybody knows this. It just happens sometimes.
We don't all have cavernous assholes like you, I guess.
I guess not.
Oh, this is great. But what is the connotation? Like, what is this mean? I need to know what the true definition of this slang or whatever it is, this expression.
I mean, I'm as literal as I can be right now. Like you're rinsing off your butt, and the water just goes right in. It just feels like it's just a little just like a little sip.
Okay.
Yeah, right. It's just like I guess you were thirsty. I don't know, but
interesting.
This is what happens.
Your butt does have mucous membranes on it, so
okay. There it is.
That's why it burns when you poop out hot food.
Yep, that is true.
It's because for some reason God put mucous membranes on your asshole. It's fun. I wonder what natural selection had intended for that. All right. Well, it's good to be here with you guys. Thank you for being here. I haven't done the show in a while, like the way it's constituted now, because Ramon and I did a one-on-one musical podcast that we put up as Constellation. Then Dagan, I think, did one without me. So I think it's been a couple of weeks since I've been here. I'll say right off the top that my topic was going to be baseball, but I want to kind of say, I thought that would have been a perfect combination, actually, with Dagan here, but that's like Dagan shit, and so I don't want to use that topic today. So I'm going to do something else. I'm sorry. I had a lot to say about baseball, but
I was really looking forward to complaining about the Mets. So
yeah, I'm sorry.
I actually started watching. The Mets are such a joke. I started watching Knuckles today, and the first episode. I don't want to spoil anything for the show, but the Knuckles like prays to his past elders, and he appears and goes, "Oh man, and the Mets lost again today." He's reading the newspaper talking about the Mets.
Yo,
yeah, dude, it's like God, you and I are fans of a joke franchise.
It's interesting though because like. I don't want to get too deep into it, but the Mets have won twice, you know, and they're not that old. They're like 60 years old or something like that. And they won in my lifetime.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
So it's like they're not.
They fail so big.
It is true. You know what I was thinking about because we're watching the hockey playoffs right now and the Islanders are just fucking getting stomped out.
Yeah.
Which is not a huge surprise. They didn't really belong in the playoffs anyway. I mean, that's just me being honest. They were barely hanging on. But it's funny, man, because there's this. Well, first of all, the Rangers.
Oh, we're having a good time right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like a boring playoffs. Everyone's like sweeping right now. It's 2-3-0 series. Mm-hmm. I think the Rangers are going to go up 3-0. Like it's kind of it's a slow and steady first round here.
Yeah, in the Eastern, because the Western divisions started later too. If there are 3 sweeps, people are going to get like a week plus off. Mm-hmm. That's not always a good thing.
Huh?
In the NHL playoffs, nonetheless. But anyway, I forgot what I was even going to say. It doesn't matter. Here we are. All right. Let's get into our topics at hand. Micah, you're prepared with a topic?
Oh, yeah. I've got a topic.
All right, cool. So I'm actually going to go first just because I have the boys here as well. And Micah, so you're all Xbox players. And I have nowhere to talk about this stuff or like kind of inquire about it. But I'm curious what everyone thinks about kind of. We've talked about this in the past, but Xbox's status is on the back of the fiscal information that came out yesterday from when we're recording.
Yeah.
It doesn't look great from a hardware perspective, but very strong from a services and software perspective. Sounds to me like they're turning themselves into a third party fully. And I was reading Satya's commentary where he noted by name that Microsoft had 7 games in PlayStation's top 7 or top 20. I'm sorry, 20 PlayStation Store's top 25 games. 7 of them were Xbox games, and so Bethesda games too. And so your Fallouts and all the rest. And Sea of Thieves is doing very, very well over there apparently.
Crazy.
Pentiment and Hi-Fi. So I'm kind of just curious what everyone's gut feeling is about this because I was looking at this. There was an analyst. We don't know hardware numbers, obviously they don't share them anymore, and haven't for a very long time actually, but he was saying that he thinks that they sold somewhere like 800,000 units in the 3 months leading into the end of the year, or I guess this would be their third fiscal quarter. It's Microsoft. And when you look at the numbers, you see that they'd actually be down in revenue and in net income, if not for Activision, which puts them over into the black, but they spend so much money doing that. I'm just kind of curious what everyone thinks about this, because seeing Satya talk about how we're committed to bringing more players to, or more our games to more players where they are, it's like, well, this is certainly going to happen now. So am I wrong on this? Cog, what are your feelings about this? Because you guys recorded Duke and then this came out, so you're going to have a little time to talk to about it as well.
Yeah. Matty was the one actually sent me the information. I was like, oh, wow, 31% down. That's not good as far as hardware is concerned. But no, look, it's one of those things that I think that obviously we saw it, was it gaming revenue up 51%, content services up 62%. And I'm like, okay, and then you get Satya's comments, and Satya actually, like you said, verbalizing, we actually had that on a topic on ILP as far as, seeing these top sellers, as far as the PlayStation Store consist of 7, Microsoft owned or whatever properties, whether it be Bethesda, Activision, like you said earlier, Sea of Thieves. And I was even surprised to see Grounded, on that list. So what it showed me is, to me, it's like, it's that realization, right? Where they themselves, as far as hardware, they know they're not doing well. And I feel that either internally, like we said before, previous shows, targets were missed. And now we are in the midst of the pivot. We are in the midst of them exploring. And me and Matty's have already said, like, people are fooling themselves. They think it's just going to be those 4 and that's it, especially if they see success. So I've always felt live service was the initial way, for them to kind of do it. Sea of Thieves, I think, being like the number 1 and the number 5, paid pre-order on PlayStation during the time when, I think, was it Rise of the Roman and Dragon's Dogma was out, was very surprising to me. And what it ultimately shows me is what we talked about with brand power. When it comes to Sony and Nintendo as being established as video game brand makers that people want to associate with, almost like an Apple, is just that I think Xbox has come to the realization, like, we are, whether it be their snafus or people just do not like our platform, because what I find hilarious is this: these same 6-year-old games are literally out now on the Xbox platform in a service, but technically for free, but people are willing to buy these same games on the PlayStation Store. So it goes to show you, people love their ecosystem and they want to stay in it as far as their digital libraries and things of that nature. So yeah, I mean, I think this is part of that transition. The only thing that is weird to me that I think is, I've never seen before as a Sega kid, usually when you see these type of transitions, you're going full third party and you're getting out of hardware completely. What's interesting to me is they are still making this commitment to say, hey, we still are going to do hardware, obviously despite the numbers, but it is interesting to me that strategy I've never really seen before. So it's like we still have one foot in. So I still anticipate another console generation from Xbox. But after that, I don't know, especially if technology continues to go the way it goes and, cloud or other options as far as putting their services, as far as Game Pass on other devices. So final thing I'll say, Game Pass is the platform for them. It's clear. As far as the third-party stuff, it's going, more games will be coming. I'm not fooling myself on that. And I think for me, ultimately, we have to admit, though, that this is what the hardcore Xbox fan may not want to admit. As much as the brand, you feel like the brand is losing its value, if they continue to see this type of revenue success, especially now after the transition of ABK, they are going to be emboldened to continue to be aggressive with this. So that's where I'm at. But interesting times.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Let's get you in here, Matty. Curious what you'd have to say.
Yeah, like Hawk and I said when it came to them bringing 4 games over, I mean, right away, we all knew it wasn't going to stop there. I don't even think you need to see one iota of numbers to know that Xbox was going to continue this, because I think either way, there was this justification that they should continue this initiative. Like, if they brought these 4 over and they all failed, well, we brought over 4 soft games that, maybe they weren't going to target the right audiences or the right zeitgeist, or they're old. Like, they had a number of reasons to say, we're going to do this again. And if it succeeds, which we're seeing it is, that's the more obvious reasoning. Like, oh, it's doing well. People are buying these things that they're not buying on our platform. So let's go sell them over here because like we're not making anything over here with these games. And we have the chance to just as a business thrive by re-releasing content. You get to do the Nintendo thing. Like Nintendo does this with GameCube. Just release these old games remastered like a decade later. And not in the case of Xbox, it'll be a decade, but they release these games later and they just make a killing on them. And so I think Xbox is realizing, oh, we do have valuable IP, but we may not have a platform that people value currently in a widespread area. Like I love Xbox, I do. Like I have so many memories with them, but not a lot of people do. And so if they have to bring their stuff to PlayStation to realize, oh, they do have valuable IP, then I get it. But yeah, we've tracked the numbers every time the results come out every quarter, and I don't remember the last time we saw a significant uptick of hardware sales. It's always been in this sort of free fall where it's either the most I've seen it up is like within the 10% range. And typically that was in the holiday window with like the Series S. Europe was a spot that it felt like Xbox was starting to get some traction in for console sales. And then it looks like now, as we can tell by the numbers, it's slowing down dramatically. I think they're also seeing the effects of that business update's a dagger, man. Like it is. I'm sorry, but I think people listen to our show on Defying Duke now, not because like they're deeply engaged in Xbox, but because they're deeply engaged in gaming. And so Xbox is becoming more like agnostic. And I mean, that's been great for our reception of our show. People have been just way nicer now. It's been awesome. But I feel like that I've seen less tribalism in turn. Like I've seen it's kind of put a pin in that whole balloon, at least for now. We'll see. I'm curious to see how things change after the Xbox showcase. I feel like that gets some swagger back. Like look at all these games. We'll see. But I think that was a moment. A lot of people said, you know what, the fact that and we talked about it in our big crossover episode. I said the fact that we even have to pause for a moment and think like, is Xbox here to stay? Is enough for no one to go and buy an Xbox, because the fact that we've had to question it after all this time and all these chances is bad. It's not acceptable. And even now, after the business update, I don't think they were very clear. I said this in our recap on Duke, that I don't think they were very clear about what the future plan is. And they have like one hand behind the back, which we could all infer what it is as we're talking about now, like that they're going to start bringing things over. I think people would be foolish to think that you look at how popular Bethesda games are with Fallout right now. I know Fallout's like a very special IP, but you think they're looking at all that success and not thinking how bringing Starfield over to PlayStation is going to be like a great move for them? Of course they're going to do that eventually. So it's really interesting to see how Xbox has transformed as a company to, we've talked about, Cog, you mentioned this, like this gray line, like greed or survivability. And I think you could, in a strange twist of fate, it's almost a blending of both. Like they need a lot of money. They're Microsoft. They're going to want the maximum dollar. But at the same time, they are investing in these games. And like, I see no hype for Hellblade 2. I think the Xbox fandom is hyped for it, but I'm talking about beyond that. This should be, as the game announced alongside your series consoles, like this should be the game shouted from the rooftops, like you were kind of doing with Starfield. But the problem is it's so short that I don't think they could show any more material for it. They kind of just shot the whole load of marketing for it. And so it's just strange that it's like Xbox almost has too much going on where they can't capitalize on moments that could be big turning points. Like Hellblade 2, maybe, we still got a little bit less than a month. Hellblade 2 might be this kind of momentum builder. Like, okay, we're going to turn the page. This is a good game, hopefully. And you move into the showcase from there. We'll see. I think a lot of this stuff is momentum based for our culture. We talk to more hardcore gamers than like the average Joe, but I think, I get why Xbox is going in this direction, because you're seeing the results right now. Like those, content revenues and content and services revenue going up makes sense with the acquisition being done, but just they're making a killing on their games. They're just not making a killing on hardware. And so I think they're going to, if anyone needed a comparable, ever since Dustin made that Valve comparison, I've really fallen in love with the idea, because I just see Xbox behaving more and more like them. And they have a great partnership with Valve. So it only makes sense that they would start to, I think, imitate their behavior a bit, where I think they're still going to make hardware. Like I think they're still going to do like a handheld alternative. Like I think they're just going to make it where like, no matter where you are, you can access an Xbox and that's it. And maybe that's the future. We'll see if like PlayStation, Nintendo follow up on that. I'm curious to see if Xbox is clairvoyant or if they just need this to survive, but it's going to be interesting nonetheless. Anyway, that was a long tangent on I feel
No,
about
that's great. That's wonderful. I love talking to you guys about this stuff. It's good to hear all of it. Please take as much time as you'd like.
Constellation is sponsored by Raycon's exceptional everyday earbuds, which I do in fact use every day. Nab your own pair at buyraycon.com/constellation. It's me, Micah, Last Dance coordinator, co-host of our Nintendo podcast Punching Up, and Colin's wife. That last part is pretty important in regards to today's ad read, because Colin and I are almost always together, but often doing different things, typically playing games. Colin will be on the PS5, I'll be on my Switch, and I found that my Raycon everyday earbuds act as an amazing buffer between what's going on in his game and what's going on in mine. That's because Raycon's everyday earbuds have active noise cancellation to not only enhance what you're trying to listen to on your own, but to block out the rest of the world too. Heck, we've happened to fly a lot recently, and these things have worked like a charm, even if we happen to be going through some of the most heinous turbulence I've ever encountered. Another big thing I love about my Raycon everyday earbuds is their customizable fit. Many rival earbuds have a one-size-fits-all mentality, but with my piercings and so on, normal earbuds simply don't fit well in my ears. When you grab your everyday earbuds, you'll find that Raycon has included multiple, varied sets of gel tips that will help them fit snugly and securely. Listen, I can't recommend these earbuds enough. They hold a huge charge and charge up rapidly. They're resistant to wet weather and sweat for those of you who like to work out and or be outside, and you can even connect these bad boys to multiple devices at once, like gaming hardware and your phone simultaneously. And yes, they cost about half the price of their competitors, offering high-quality audio, fit, and design in the process. So why not go and get your own pair of Raycon everyday earbuds? Go to buyraycon.com/constellation today. That's BUYRAYCON/CONSTELLATION to get 20% off your Raycon order plus free shipping. That's right, you'll get 20% off and free shipping at buyraycon.com/constellation. Again, for your own affordable, high-quality Raycon everyday earbuds, head to buyraycon.com/constellation today.
Micah, I've known you for 4 years now. We're wed. Now, when I first knew you, and I still know you as an Xbox fan, but you play Xbox primarily, and then Switch. You got, you love your Nintendo as well. You don't really play PlayStation unless it's an exclusive that you care about, a Last of Us style game, for instance. And I've noticed over time you've gotten to the point, from my perspective. Now, I don't know if this is Punching Up's influence or just your own changing taste. Like, you don't. I think I've played your Xbox more than you have in the last year, conclusively, I would say, because I played like a few games on your Xbox this year. Or over the last 12 months. And that surprises me because I felt you brought balance to the Force. And now I'm watching you play Xenoblade Chronicles 2, which looks like a PS3 game, but it looks like a lot of fun. And you were playing Vanilleware's Unicorn Overlord, which looks great. I'd love to get to that game. I'm never going to probably, but I'd love to get to it.
So good.
So you obviously have a taste that is more akin to what would go on Nintendo. So I understand that you would be drawn to that, but I know you as a big Gears fan. I know you as a big Call of Duty fan. And Gears, by the way, Gears 6 apparently next month is going to be announced. That's what they say. Mm-hmm. So where are you on this? I feel like you are an anecdotal piece of evidence of what's happening to Xbox, in my opinion, because you were really in the core base and you don't even use it.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a disappointing few years. I was really big into the 360 days. That's when the console felt very distinct and unique. And as much as I loved like the Xbox One, it started to turn into this feels like when it's running Windows 8. And I just meant that in terms of like they stylized, they made it look like a computer in so many ways of like, this user interface used to be very distinct, it just used to be like I'm turning on my game system, and then it started to feel like I'm turning on a computer. That's for me when it started to just lose some of the magic. It's just in terms of we're no longer feeling unique. Where's the blades on the 360? All right, where is that?
Yeah.
And I mean, it was small things too, like when the achievements, when they started redoing sort of the little tiles for the achievements and things like that, and it just started to feel less fun in some ways, but the games were still there, and that's what mattered the most. I am a huge Gears fan. It's one of their biggest fumbles, in my opinion, because I think from Gears 4 to 5 was only like 3 years between those two games. It was like, I think 2016 and 2019. And then it's like, we're still waiting for Gear 6, all these years later. Like, maybe we'll get the announcement in May or June, like the rumors say. But it's from the last thing we heard, it was like, this game might not even be 2025. So it's just a major misstep, in my opinion. Some of these things that they have just in favor of Game Pass, pushing that further and further. It's like, well, what happened to your core franchises? What happened to making sure that the next Gears game came out on time? Like, these are the games that I play on Xbox because I just am such a big fan of them. And also because it's my favorite controller. Call of Duty, is something I only play on Xbox because it's the best controller, in my opinion, for multiplayer gaming. Like, it just cannot be beat. You'll never catch me playing Call of Duty on PlayStation because I just dislike their controller so much. It's actually what really kept me from getting into Helldivers, because as much as I loved it, that controller just doesn't work for me. I have very small hands. That's not a controller made for people my size.
They should make an S-style controller for, like, in the original Xbox, for a smaller, like, for kids too. Be interesting.
No, they should. If they made a PlayStation like kids controller, I'd be the first one in line to buy it, because as cool as the new controllers are, they're just entirely too heavy. And I'm playing Helldivers, and it's like a half hour into playing it, like, my hands are killing me. It's just not feasible. So Xbox has, I feel, let me down a little bit. It used to be my primary. Of course, I played their exclusives on it, but it turned into my third-party machine of like, okay, well, it's where I'll play Call of Duty. It's where I'll play all my shooters, Borderlands, all those things I'll play on Xbox. It's now turning into Switch is that machine, depending on the game, depending on the performance of it, of course. I've mentioned before, like, there are games I have zero interest in playing on Switch. Witcher 3 is not a game I'm going to play on Switch. That belongs on a powerful console. But for everything else, when it comes to JRPGs, anything that's turn-based is fantastic on Switch. You don't really need a lot of power for something like Unicorn Overlord, for example. So that's just the place for me to play it. I'm disappointed because I did really enjoy the Xbox ecosystem. But for the first time in many years, I actually canceled my gold subscription because I haven't been using my Xbox nearly as much. I'm definitely not playing multiplayer games these days. I was disappointed with the recent Call of Duty, just some of the reception it got. I wasn't super into it. Next, this one coming out this year, we'll see. But it's changed for me. The last game I played on Xbox was Yakuza 7, which I still need to get back to. I maybe got about halfway through that game, but it's just not the same anymore at all. And in the absence of me playing multiplayer games and the absence of them releasing exclusives that I really care about, like the next Gears game, I'm just waiting for them to show me something that I have to play on their console. Pentiment was fantastic. I played it on Switch. I bought it day one as soon as it was released because that is a game that belongs on Switch.
I streamed that game on a handheld the whole time. I hear you. Yeah.
Exactly. It's one of those, I want to support them by purchasing the game, but the reality is that I don't need to play this on Xbox. This is a perfect handheld experience. So I'm waiting for them to give me something that I have to play on Xbox, something that will be the best on Xbox. And there are things that I still would play there. Like Yakuza 7 is another example. That's a game with just a lot of dynamic pieces moving around. You want a console that's powerful to play something like that. But otherwise, they are not really giving me much that I say, oh yeah, I have to get this for Xbox. I have to be here to play this. It's disappointing because I do love the brand. And I think, Phil Spender, a great guy, seems very friendly, but I just don't feel it anymore. And honestly, I bring this up a lot, but it all started when they canceled Scalebound. And I feel like I've just been upset ever since then with some of their decisions. And I don't know. It feels like they're losing a lot of their identity. Yeah. And if they turn into just a games, and service company, I don't know. I'd be upset. But so long as we still see like my favorite franchises somewhere, I think I just have to accept that it is what it is.
Interesting points.
I'm sorry, I'm writing a note down. Yeah, there's a lot to say because I don't know that they can really do what they're going to try to do, which is to kind of exist without a console front facing and then have some sort of service, because that service is going to need to ultimately run on everything. And I think that, like Game Pass, my theory for a long time was that Game Pass would come to PlayStation eventually. And I thought that that would be the way in for a lot of these games. Now, there's this theory that they kind of have to make the games present first and then have Game Pass, and then, and if that's what they want to do. But I guess I just didn't expect this level of what I would deem as kind of capitulation, that would have them put their games on PlayStation and Switch, eagerly brag about it in their financials, and say that we're like totally committed to this idea. When I don't have a strong affinity for the Xbox brand. I own an original Xbox. I was at IGN, played a shit ton of games on Xbox 360. Obviously, during that era, Xbox One, I barely messed around with. So it's not like I have this crazy affinity for them, but I also don't want them to go away. It's kind of like when the Phoenix Coyotes moving to Utah, for instance, right? It's like you feel bad. It's exciting. It's interesting. It's different. But you feel bad that like people are losing out. Like people love this thing and they're losing out on it. They might not be being treated very well, but I've long said that I think a lot of this does have to do with maybe a lack of requisite talent at the top there to do what is necessary to get games onto your platform. And for as powerful as they are as a third party right now, which is awesome, it's great to see, this is all through acquisitions. I mean, they're relevant games. So if you think about it, I guess Sea of Thieves and Grounded would be Xbox Game Studio proper games with Obsidian, right, and Rare. But you're talking about like Fallout with Bethesda, you're talking about Call of Duty with Activision and all these different things. It's like, damn, very lucky you did those acquisitions, or you'd have some revenue problem and some issues to deal with on the front end there.
Yeah.
But in my notes here, I wanted to say a few things. And I'm curious what you guys think about these things. We can obviously take as much time as we want. You had brought this up, Matty, about there being no doubt that there would be more. What we call it on Sacred Symbols is Game 5. What will Game 5 be?
Yeah.
Right. And I think it would be something like, keep saying like Rare Replay or something, just because Rare has had consoles for so long. It's like, okay, well, might as well just bring this over and see what happens with this. But who the hell knows? But there's a major level of denial in what I view as some parts of the Xbox ecosystem, for when I read around and click around, that like what is happening. And it has never been more over for the old initiative than it was when they released these quarterly reports. And I was reading, I'm like, it's definitely 800,000 consoles is a quarter is disastrous. That would kill companies without the proper financial stream. You're wearing your Dreamcast shirt. I had a great affinity for the Dreamcast. I loved it. Dreamcast was canceled under very similar numbers. In fact, I would argue Dreamcast might have even been doing better than 800,000 globally a quarter when it got canceled in April of 2001. And so I just don't understand. I mean, I do understand, like, denial isn't only a river in Egypt, as they say, but it's strange to me, like, because I see people holding on to this idea and they basically mirror it. And I've been talking to some of my sources about this as well, with this Helldivers 2 rumor, where it's like, well, it's happening to you too. And I'm like, Helldivers 2 isn't going to Xbox. Like, at least I personally wouldn't care if it happened. I think it would be kind of interesting, like get more people involved or whatever. Yeah. But looking at it through the corporate lens, it's like, why would they do that? And the same thing with Nintendo. Like, no one even dreams that they're going to do that. Microsoft is in such a vulnerable position. I think that if I were Sony, I'd be like, yeah, we could sell 1 million copies of Helldivers 2 on Xbox, probably something like that. Well, so we'll make $32 million. Like, and then we put a game on Xbox, and then that opens up this floodgate for us. They're probably like, no, we don't need to do that. And that is my base assumption. So when I saw rumors like that, I'm like, I'm not so sure about that, dude. Like, that seems, first of all, the rumor was like, there are apparently maybe early conversations going on at Arrowhead about it. I'm like, first of all, Arrowhead wouldn't be having those conversations. They don't own it. And I just think that, like, trying to draw this mirror image between all the different companies is not effective, because it's not going to go the same for all these companies. I think Sony's very interested in getting their games on mobile. I also think Sony's very interested in getting their games on PC. And I've said,
that's where I was going to go.
Yeah. And I've said and my own audience is, a lot of my own audience disagrees with me, but it's like they should do this aggressively, in my opinion. Because I think more than half of Helldivers copies were sold on PC. So if Helldivers was a PS5 game, it would have done very respectably, 4 million, maybe something like that. I mean, that's a lot for a game like that, but we're talking about 10 plus million, probably much higher than that. I think Sony has held those numbers very close to their vest because they're going to say them in their financials. Their financials don't come out until the middle of May. So we're not going to have any information there, but I wouldn't be surprised if the number was even like 15 million or something like that, for that game. And so I think we have to continue to break this idea apart that like all of the companies are going to go forward equally and end up in the same place at the same time. They're not. And I think Microsoft, to their credit and to the Xbox brand's credit, as I've said many times in the past, is that I think they made the right bet on Game Pass. Like, I think they totally did. I think that it was a nice idea.
I'm shocked by this statement. I want to hear this. I'm actually shocked by this.
Yeah, maybe I've never talked about it on Xbox or on Sacred
I've never heard this.
Is that all things being equal? So like think about 2015. So Game Pass comes out in 2017 in some nascent sense, right? So think about like the mid 2000s, the mid 2000 teens. They're looking at things, especially through the lens of the Xbox One, and they're like, this isn't working for us. We need to do something different. And so from their specific perspective at that specific time, it's like, yes, subscription model.
Yeah.
Like we gotta have a subscription model. I think that it has an enormous number of trickle down consequences and unintended consequences that they're dealing with now, including training your audience not to buy games, which is why I even look at the Helldivers 2 coming to Xbox thing, and I'm like, I would be skeptical that game would even sell there because people would want it in Game Pass. But no, from like we have to flip the table. We're losing the game. Flip the table over. Make new rules. Right? Yeah, definitely. It was the right move. They just didn't execute on it. I think Jaffe feels the same way because we talk about it sometimes. Where he's like, they made the right moves with the exception of just not having games, which is obviously the central part of it all.
Yeah.
But I kind of dig the notion of saying like, we got to remake. We're losing. We got to remake the rules. So I have no problem with them doing that as a corporation internally. I probably would have made the same decision. They just they didn't deal with the unintended consequences. I do wonder if they gamed out some of these consequences. And their walled garden only works if there's a confluence of people there, which there isn't. We know even from the conversation, like that podcast they did where they said they had 34 million Game Pass subscribers. Right. Well, that's actually completely flat, if not down from the all-time high of Game Pass, because it subsumed Xbox Live with gold numbers, which were 12 million or whatever. So it's like, I don't blame you for making the move you did, but you have to kind of sleep in your bed now that you've made it. And you really, really should have had more games. And I think that they overestimated their ability to get meaningful third-party games. Clearly they can't, right? That's not happening. And I think just a series of things went wrong, but I don't hate the idea of what they tried to do. No, I just think it has destructive consequences for other ecosystems, which is one of the consequences. And they might have known that. And they might have wanted that to happen. They might have wanted to be in a position where it's like, oh, our value proposition is so great that they're asking people to like, where are the PlayStation Plus games? Like, where are the new games? I want this on PlayStation Plus. I'll wait for this on PlayStation Plus. Maybe they're like, they'll do that over there too. Right. But I think Sony did a pretty nice job of not responding. It would have been very scary probably for a couple of years to be like, this is a big problem for us. Yeah. Like if they're going to have this subscription model and we're going to sell games a la carte, but I think that they're probably pretty happy that they held to their.
Well, I think I just want to interject for a second.
Please, no, go ahead. Please.
I feel like, in my opinion, I know your point as far as, okay, well, Sony and Nintendo are not putting their games on Xbox. That is correct, right? That they're not doing that. But the way I see it is almost like a dipping of the toe for Sony in terms of what they want to do in terms of mobile and PC. And I agree with you. I agree wholeheartedly that they should put, like, when you look at the success of a Helldivers, right? They should put more games on PC and the delaying of that day and date. But to me, the reason why I think, yes, I agree with you that a lot of people in the Xbox community think that PlayStation is going to do exactly 100% verbatim what Xbox is doing. I understand your point in that when you disagree. I think where I push back slightly with the PC stuff is when I see, like the Ghost of Tsushima thing told me a lot because they snuck in the Trojan horse of, oh, by the way, here's this PlayStation overlay. Right. And here's this trophy and you can have your friends list and your ecosystem technically through Nixus without a PlayStation. So to me, that's the start of their transition. I think both companies realize the hardcore audience and their core base is going to resist this style of thinking, this ubiquitous future where you can play on PC and mobile and everything's kind of merging. I do think we're in an inflection point in that respect, but I think clearly Microsoft is way more aggressive. And as a result of what you're saying, because of these hardware sales really being bad, right? They have no choice. They have to pivot. And to my earlier point, as far as like, I still think survivability is a thing here. But it's interesting, man, because you got that, and then obviously what I go back to before, which is again, with the data that I think they may be seeing, especially with Sea of Thieves, especially with Grounded, Micah made a fantastic point. She was willing to play Pentiment on Switch. Yeah. What does that tell you? That game, Pentiment, been out on Game Pass, quote unquote, free 99, but she's in her mind, this is the place I should play it. It's portable. It doesn't require power. It's on the device I want to play it on. And I think that's the harsh reality. You know what I'm saying? There's a hip hop reference I use. It's like, I said it on IOP, Matty, where it's like, you can make the song, right? Mm-hmm. But if you give the song to Drake, all of a sudden they love it. They like it when you made the song, but the same song over there, it's great. And now I get to use my DualSense.
It's the flannel, right?
Yeah, it's the flannel. And that's just the sad reality for some people, the hardcore they're struggling with. But to me, it's like they've come to that realization. And I think, sadly, the result is the hardware sales now. It's just how they offset that is going to be interesting to me. The last point I want to make is what I thought was very interesting with, as Micah called, Phil Spender says, is when he starts openly talking about other storefronts on Xbox, Steam, things of that nature. That is very interesting because I don't know how the business of that works. As far as like, in my mind, I'm like, well, why would that incentivize anyone to buy the Xbox version if Steam is there? But clearly they're thinking about these. To me, he's very shrewd. He doesn't say things just for no reason. It's like having stuff on the back of his shelf. There's always some dual purpose. So I'm staying tuned for that, and I do think it's things are going to merge a bit more. So we'll see. It's a very interesting time. I've never seen anything like this as a Sega kid. So I'm just kind of monitoring and looking at these data points. But I think early we do have some data points with these live service and multiplayer games, and I think more are definitely coming sooner than later.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see which ones, again, like we said earlier, which ones migrate and how. Because you're even talking about Gears on Sacred Symbols recently, and I was like, I'll just play that. That's got to come over, right? You would assume some sort of Gears collection or something, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know what they want to do, and it seems like there is still a lot of tension inside about what should be done. But I think that the numbers speak for themselves. Because one of the major things that I wanted to discuss too, or just bring up, was you can't survive a console ratio of 7 or 8 to 1 or something like that. Like, it's not that it doesn't matter like in the micro level, but it matters in the macro, in that publishers, and we saw this from GamesIndustry.biz and other people, although people were so upset about this reporting, where publishers are saying at the low, mid, and high tier, like, I don't know if we should even bring our games to Xbox because of this unintentionally high walled garden that you've made. Mm-hmm. Where when Grand Theft Auto 6 is announced, everyone's like, is it coming to Game Pass? It's like, geez, Louise, dude. No, it's not coming to Game Pass. It's not. No, it's not. And so I think that ratio is really damning for them. But I agree that they're going to try to start the new generation early. I don't know how they're going to position their stuff and what exclusives will look like and all of this, because I was already positive that games like Blade were coming over. I'm pretty sure Indiana Jones and Doom will be over. Doom probably day and date, in my opinion, and so on and so forth. The one thing that I get mad about, though,
what you get mad,
is this and I'll leave it here, and we can say whatever else we want to say, because I just wanted to touch on this with you guys. It's just this notion that there are no games to play. I keep hearing this now. People say this about Microsoft and Sony, and I totally get it. From a first and second party perspective, it is a little dry. The development of games is taking longer. There's no value in making a lot of games. I don't think people realize that, but there's no value in being like, we have an exclusive every month. It's like, no, that's not good. You don't want that. You want, and I think at the cost that they're making games, these are opportunity costs, and they're serious opportunity costs of like 5 years and $200 million or whatever. So you want meaningful big games to come, and they will. And I understand on both sides, people feel like there are not enough games. And I would relatively agree with you, but I would think that there simply is, there was ill preparation for how hard it was going to be to continue to reach the bar of AAA gaming, especially in some of PlayStation Studios. And I'm sure it's becoming an onerous issue. But people are saying like, well, there's just no games here and there's no games here. And I'm like, guys, there are so many video games to play that I can't even begin to understand what anyone is talking about when they say that. I have to regularly, like weekly, have to look at games and be like, I have no time to play. I would like to play this, but I have no time to play this game. And so that's the one thing that bothers me is everyone's like, it's so boring. Where are the games? It's like, oh my God, shut up. Are you crazy?
Talk to him, Colin.
I mean, I know it's a little richer on the PlayStation side right now because we had Helldivers and Final Fantasy, and Stellar Blade is coming out is out today when we're recording this, and Rise of the Ronin and all that kind of stuff. But just like remove all exclusives from all platforms and just to look at multi-platform games, and you'll find more games than ever to play. Yeah. And I think that I bring this up because I think that just does suggest that the differentiating exclusives are going to obviously matter less, that we probably are going to a more unified app base. Like when you go on your TV and you go to Netflix or HBO or whatever, it's going to be like that, I think, for video games. Not probably until the 2030s and maybe even beyond that, but one day I do believe that it'll be more about back catalog, current gaming, genre, whatever, and we'll break down these walls further and further. So what's happening to Xbox is ultimately, I think, going to happen naturally to all competitors in the decades to come as things become more unified and as expectations of access differ. But it will be interesting to watch Xbox specifically because they're kind of the first ones to go down this road. And you had brought up the overlay for PC with PS5. I thought it was a great move. I was disappointed at first because I was like, oh, trophies, that's great. But they're trophies that are PS5 and PC / trophies. And I was like, no, this is a hint. Because if you go back to PS3 and Vita and then PS4 and Vita and PS4, PS5 games, they would share trophy lists typically. And what this means, so sometimes as a marketing tool, like Sound Shapes and other games had separate trophy lists and you would be able to get them all, but typically they would unify them in the one list. And we see this with a lot of different games. And this is going to create the new genre or the new categorization of PS5 / PC on the trophy list. And so I think I was like, oh, this is good. If you want more PC PlayStation games, which I think is a good thing for the brand, and I'm very bullish about that, then yeah, do it day and date. Who cares? I don't get it. I think people vastly overestimate PC gaming in some sense from everyone's just going to want to play games on their PC. It's like, no, they're not.
No, they're not.
Like you make the games available on PC and that's not going to stop anyone from playing it on PlayStation. I'm never going to want to play a game at this desk on this PC. Never. This is not how I play games. I don't want to play games like this. And so I think you have to eventually realize that there's polar opposite people to me that are never going to want to play or are hesitant to play on console, and you might as well just get them. And I think Microsoft did realize that earlier, but I think Sony is going to realize that sooner, and I think people should get comfortable with what that's going to look like in the years to come. Although they might, just from a marketing perspective, never pull the true day and date thing, at least this generation. But that's going to happen. So I just wanted to talk about that. It seems like an interesting hardware spiral that indicates Xbox's growth as a third party. And it's what I told my own audience. I'm like, if you want to tip this Jenga tower over, go buy those games, you know? And it seems like, not that we have a huge audience, but our audience certainly listened. And I think a lot of others did as well. And Sea of Thieves is doing huge numbers.
Huge.
Yeah. So, huge. And this is, like you said, in the era of Stellar Blade, Rise of the Ronin, Final Fantasy VII, there are games, exclusive games that are relevant, but you have a big time thing. And here's the other thing. How excited was Rare to make a game for PlayStation? It was kind of crazy that they were allowed to act like they did, you know.
The smoke windows, Colin.
Yeah, for people that don't know, like they had their consoles for a while. I've thought a great deal about how interesting this is in the sense that Sony there must have been meetings. Obviously, you don't have to have a meeting with Sony to bring your games over. Microsoft could have just done that, and it would have been fine. But you would imagine there were meetings where both sides were like, at Sony and at Microsoft, where it's like, this can't leak. And Sony was probably like, you cannot, like, to our people, like, you can't leak this. This cannot get out. We're winning. Like, we're going to win if you just shut the fuck up. Right. And on the other side, they were like, you got to keep this. No one can know you're working on these games with these test kits and all of this. And this goes back to like halfway through last year, I think. So it's pretty interesting how long they had this going.
Yes.
And with that in mind, I don't really take much of their what they say seriously. Like, I think more games will come this year. And I think I was surprised that they released all these so quickly. But I think that
that's what indicates that there's going to be more in the second half.
Yeah, I think so too.
We talked about on Duke because, a lot of people were like, well, they got everything out ahead of June. Showcase is coming up. I don't see any reason. I don't know if they'll make an announcement on a big stage like that, saying like, and my prediction on like a fifth game was always Forza Horizon. Like, I just feel,
damn, man.
Yeah, I know the burger, fries, and shake are going over,
burger,
man.
fries, and shake on that.
Yeah, I mean, you look at CNDs, and I think it's just a great candidate. Like, it is. Like, you just see that people are hungry for a live service game, and it's a pirate game. It's like, imagine taking like the biggest racing game and just bringing it over.
Gotta say that when the funds is low, the games services is there. You go give them the morsels. Give them
I also think games like Contraband, I don't know if that'll be exclusive anymore. I don't think, even though it's going through Xbox Game Publishing, like I don't think that's going to be exclusive anymore. I didn't know if there was a good time to really throw this out there, but I just wanted to, please, as one of my just lingering thoughts when you were talking a little bit earlier, Colin, was you were running down a list of just how things have continuously spiraled, and I think where it really starts for Xbox is how I don't know if it was intentional or not, but big and small. It's also something Micah was saying about with the way things were released. I do think they really took advantage of people's patience, whether they deliberately did that or they just didn't have things ready. I think about when they announced all those acquisitions in 2018. That was a great shot in the arm. I remember distinctly, like, even though I wasn't like an Xbox creator, I guess, if you will, at the time, it was a huge deal to see them invest that big because they were on the ropes getting outsold by PlayStation. It was all PlayStation that generation. And instead of going out quietly, they're like, we're buying 5 companies. And that was, before they went out and got In Exile and Obsidian the following year. Like, it was a real statement where, the next generation is going to be great. You launch your system with no games. Fans are still accepting, like, okay, well, you have Game Pass. 2022 comes around. No games except 2. You have Grounded 1.0, which you could already play, and Pentiment, which I love Pentiment, but it's not a system seller. And even Josh Sawyer would tell you as much. People are still waiting for results from that, I call it the draft class of 2018. We're still waiting for results. Like, really, Hellblade 2 is the first. 6 years later, there are little things, achievements. People have been begging, dude, achievement changes, please. They're like, it's on the list. How fucking long is your list that it's been this long? And you've been lapped by PlayStation, who copied you. You guys should have been trailblazing that, So I think the series generation has symbolized a turnaround for them with like Game Pass. In many instances, they had momentum. There was a time out the gate with the generation that it was neck and neck. 2022 happened, and I think that plus Redfall was this sort of fuse blowing of just, we're done waiting. We're tired of waiting. Even for me, I know I host the show. My enthusiasm for Xbox is low. Why the fuck should I care about these guys? They don't know what to do right now. And they're just executing a new strategy every year, it feels like. Like 2023 felt like the year, like you're going to get Activision Blizzard, Game Pass is going to be rolling. You got a bunch of exclusives lined up. This is the year of Starfield. Like, you should be fucking firing on all cylinders this year. And instead, it was like arguably the biggest catastrophe for them of the generation thus far in whether or not they were going to stick around after Starfield launched, which did remarkably well. So they've just become so unpredictable in the worst way. And you're waiting for things that you just don't know when you're going to get. And I think additional shots in the foot come from State of Decay, Perfect Dark, like these games that just show up and disappear. They just started to make this habit out of CGI announcements and then, nothing afterwards. I don't think we'll see State of Decay for another 2 years, 3 years. I don't know. I could see Perfect Dark ended up being like a launch game for the next generation. For if they launch early, I should mention. I think these things just show up and disappear, or they're just not results. Like, yes, this is a glacial industry, but at the same time, there's got to be some sort of give if you're a platform holder. Like, you're supposed to be able to make a difference for yourself because you can kind of control the motion of the ocean, if you will. So yeah, I know it's a little off top. It's on topic, but it's a little bit off the subject that we were just on. But just what you all were saying really made me think about just, I think what's resulted in this fall of hardware sales really, I think, comes down to like the existing fan base isn't like, championing the brand because, they're not really doing much for them outside of Game Pass from their perspective, from what we read on Duke and everything. We'll see if that changes because they're claiming, we got 10 games coming this year.
Mhm.
It's about to be May. Like, there's
Don't
got to
believe
be.
they coming, Matty?
No, they're coming. I'm not saying they're not coming. I mean, like, they're coming, but like, we're going to get that 2021 shotgun blast, which we also know kind of didn't work out for them. So I'm not going to complain. Games to play, but they definitely, I think their next challenge when they start getting the games going is going to be organizing that content library to like not overflow and overload. Like, I think there's certain ones that are obvious. I still think Avowed is going to get delayed out of this year. Like, everything I've seen with that game just suggests like, yeah, I mean, you look at the gameplay. Like, I love Obsidian. That game just doesn't look ready to go. They're like, this is pre-alpha. I'm like, it's fucking 2024 and you're in pre-alpha and you're releasing it this year. That doesn't make sense at all. I know AAA move or AA move different from what like Colin and I do, but that doesn't make any sense. Like, you need more than a year if you're in pre-alpha still or alpha. Like, you need more time.
For sure. I mean, way more than that. I would argue.
Yeah. And so I don't think that game's coming out this year, especially with they really have 10 other games coming out this year and we're in May. I think that one's a for sure delay. So we'll see, but I could be wrong. Yeah. Point being though, is I just think a lot of patience is wearing thin. And they're also, what's funny is what's kind of the nasty part is now that they got Activision, now that their revenue's up. I've always joked throughout the beginning parts of this generation. Like, I was like, beware, Cog knows what I'm gonna say. I was like, beware evil villain Xbox. I said, they're going to come around and they're going to start snatching your money and start changing subscription fees and stuff. And I feel like we're starting to see some shrewd business moves from them, and they're doing it before they even got the leg up. So I feel like they're kind of the way people view them is only going to get a little more sour. When they're making money, they're not going to care. They're going to be like Nintendo, like all these companies, right? They want to, like, PlayStation so badly wants to be a hybrid of Nintendo and Apple. Like, they so badly just want to make their own tech that's fucking overpriced and exist in their own world of like tribalistic fans that are obsessed with like one particular platform. And just let that feed them forever as they gradually move into PC in the back door. It's so obvious. So all these companies want to exist on their own terms. So I'm excited to see how Xbox plans to do so, but I don't think people are going to end up liking them very much at the end of it all.
No, it's interesting because we said this on our Sacred Cross Duke episode, one of them, where I was like, I think the Activision deal just took so long that the situation materially changed. And I know this sounds crazy, but I wonder, like, if they could have gotten out of that, would they have? Like, I feel Activision is the one that really pushed it because there was a kill fee, right? And now it's like, it's a trivial kill fee, but it would have been a bad look spending so much time. Like, we have to close this deal, like, regardless of whatever. We overpaid for this. They've stuck us with this price, and we're going to have to pay this trivial kill fee of $3 billion, but it's going to make us look bad. And people are going to be like, oh, that's fucking 15 Last of Us, budgets and shit like that. And like people like me. So I wonder, because the numbers show that they would actually be down year over year in revenue, like we said, and in operating income without Activision. And I'm like, geez, man, that's interesting. But I also wonder, do you feel like you got bang for your buck because it was very expensive? You're a big company, but it's worth noting, it's the biggest acquisition Microsoft has ever made.
Yes.
Yeah. But people don't, it's not the biggest acquisition in games only. It's the biggest acquisition they've ever made. And think about all of the companies they bought over the years. Many. Yeah. And I don't know. So I want them to stick around because I think it's important to have vibrant competition in your lane. Because I agree with you, Matty. I think Sony wants to get back into the Nintendo lane as much as that's where they started. And that's where their beef all began in games anyway. And I think that they look at that. I think the handheld thing, like Nintendo's pioneering of handhelds and then just insisting on sticking with them, has changed everyone's outlook to where I think both companies, Microsoft and Sony, are going to have a handheld version of their next console.
Yeah.
And which is, it's so funny, man. Like, there's so many things are wrong when you think about them in the past. Like, I remember having earnest conversations about if PS4 would be the last console, right? Mm-hmm. And people weren't talking out of their ass. They were serious conversations. And then you just realize there are just certain things that are true and certain things that aren't. And ceding that handheld space to Nintendo, and then seeing a company like Valve take advantage of that in a very niche way with their own handheld. It's like, oh, maybe we shouldn't be fucking around here too much. That's where I think the PlayStation Portal comes from, is to just see, like, just kind of step forward.
It did well, right? So that's cool.
Yeah, they can't make enough of them.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that has to do with like sharing components and what is important for them to manufacture and all of the rest. But the one thing that you said, though, Matty, that I thought was interesting is you said a lot of interesting things, but it's just this level of support for Microsoft's, or for those level of support for Xbox's executives, is strange to me. And I say this as a PlayStation fan because Jim Ryan, the PS5 was a meteoric and is a meteoric success, especially considering when it was manufactured and sold. That they managed to get that thing out the door at all is crazy. And that's true for everybody. And everyone was ready to throw Jim Ryan in a fucking dumpster, light it on fire, and send it down like the steepest San Francisco street into the bay. And he was good, like objectively good at his job, right? He's a marketing guy. He doesn't play games. I don't really give a fuck about any of that, right? I just want like good business acumen. Other people that you trust can take care of everything else. And he's gone now. Then we have Hiroki Totoki Literature Club hanging out for a little while, but he's not going to become the permanent CEO because he's the CFO of Sony. That would be a demotion. So they're going to have someone else in here. But then I see this vehement support, like continuous support for Xbox's executives. I'm like, I do not get where people's loyalty in this regard comes from. These people, you don't know them and they don't owe you anything. And you don't owe them anything. And look at what they've done to your brand. What is this? You know, this is the thing that bothers me the most. It's just like, damn, this dude can sell you guys. I'm not saying you guys, like a lot of Xbox fans, anything. Because
yeah, but also Daddy Phil bought Activision for Kitten like Activision.
Yeah.
So that's all fine.
That's true.
This is all.
Well, a lot of people say that though, Micah, about he's like kind of the one that turned the brand around. And I'm like, if this is a turnaround for the brand, then
well, I'll just interject. I think I'll interject and just say I agree that the parasocial relations, we talked about it, right? Like I think it is strange. I think Phil felt like he meant well. I think even for me, who's a pundit, if you will, took me a little bit to start to be able to like read Phil and the kind of guy he is, and I think he means well. But I also think that as time has gone on, you've been able to read like he's clearly stuck between wanting to do what's right by the hardcore gamer and like being a businessman. You just can't do both. You just can't. In his spot, at least you can. Fair. And I will say with the Xbox One generation, there was no hope, right? Like that should have been it. And he did provide that pitch that convinced them to keep Xbox going. And I think as long as Xbox is going right now, that's the most you can really ask for, because I do think they stand as a challenger where, you mentioned shaking it up. It's like, I don't think anyone else, like, PlayStation and Nintendo want to stand pat. They want to keep things old school rules. I kind of respect that Xbox. I do respect that Xbox wants to shake things up, even if it's a little uncomfortable. I know they're doing it for their own sake, but it does certainly make things interesting. And it's not to justify why people have attached themselves to, but I think the love for Xbox is so strong because it's, it's like always the challenger brand. So they're always trying to punch up. And so some people love the underdog story. And when you see someone championing the underdog, then I feel like that's where the fan attachment really comes from. And these execs, silly enough, interact with these people and really gave them a bigger platform than they ever should have had. And we saw how with that moment of, the last couple of months, that kind of downfall, a lot of mental collapses and stuff. We spotlighted all that. So
it's been fun to watch. I am unabashed about that because those people make the ecosystem so unbearable. Like a lot of those people on all sides.
Yeah.
To see some of them just eat total shit, that wouldn't typically be exciting for me, except for that they've been so unpleasant to everyone for so long, untriggered and it's not like anyone's going at them. They make videos and they quote you out of context and do all these things. And it's like, damn, dude, you ate shit. Love it.
LSM has been a big target for both sides of that. And it's always been extremely weird. I'm glad to see it's toned down because I think we do good shit here, so I don't know why you would want to vilify us. Like, I think we clearly led the charge on that conversation following what was happening with Xbox. Like, there was no one doing better than us at that time. So I don't know why people want to do it, but yeah, it's clearly mean-spirited. I'm with you that I feel bad for them because it's clearly like mental illness, but at the same time, like I don't want to see someone just crash and fucking burn to realize that, like it's a pretty sad thing to watch. But yeah, I'm hoping that Xbox learned a valuable lesson with that because they have been quiet. Like there used to be, right, Cog, when we were doing Duke, like every week, a new Phil Spencer comment, interview, tweet, something to document that someone across the brand was saying. And there's very little of that. It's a very different ball game, at least right now. And I kind of like that. And I hope it sticks like that. I think there's one thing I mean, I liked at first when Xbox was more active and communicative, but it's clear that hasn't worked for them. I would not hate if they kind of went to a more reserved, calculated PlayStation, Nintendo approach. You're like, we'll speak, and when we do speak, we'll have something meaningful to say, and that's it. Like you'll stop and you'll listen. Especially because Xbox doesn't need to do all these interviews. They have a bunch of platforms and showcase formats. From the partner preview to the idea Xbox Indie or IGN crossovers to their own summer showcases. They do something at Gamescom. They have something at Tokyo Game Show. They're usually at the Game Awards. Like they have so many platforms that I don't think they need to be as vocal as they are. So I think that'll also cut some of the parasocial relationship forming between exec and fans. And especially because now the attachment is at a low for some people. I think that tie being severed was super necessary. So maybe blessing in disguise as well.
I want to jump in for a quick. I know we go along with
no,
this.
No, take your time. I have no problem.
No, I get it. Look, I guess for me, none of that bothers me because the reality is I like to learn about the business. Even if someone is not telling me 100% of the truth, they still have to protect certain aspects of their corporation, which I get that. But there's a part of me that's like, okay, I want to know how you rationalize that, or how are you dealing with that? And to me, it's social media, it's Twitter. Like to me, that's an echo chamber. None of that is real to me because at the end of the day, when we circle back to what we talked about earlier, is that I'm looking as a person where Xbox is my preferred platform. I have an overabundance of games to play. I also have the lineup that I'm looking at with Indiana Jones, Avowed, Hellblade, and I get it. I think what's happened here, Matty, and I don't know if we talked about this on Duke, is the business update. Because of the time outside of Power World in January, which was this wow, pleasant surprise phenomenon that probably no one expected, even Xbox themselves, right? Between that gap and then May, right? Of waiting now, we know Hellblade is going to be in that pocket. There was no Towerborn. There's no thing. I think the Xbox community is just like any other community in the sense that it's like they want to brag and talk about games that they're playing from an exclusive standpoint when there was no games at that point in that little drought. And mind you, PlayStation during this drought, Final Fantasy, Stellar Blade, you know what I'm saying? Like, what your Helldivers?
It's like COVID energy. Remember in 2020, like everyone was so fucking bored. Everyone was getting canceled. Xbox fans are so fucking bored right now.
Bro, it's just sports teams because I know how this thing works. The minute the game comes out and it's Hellblade, everything's great. But what compounded the situation is now they have this business update. It is, oh my God, what's happening? What you see what I'm saying? And that's justified. I totally understand that. People are concerned that things are going, and let's be real. The console fight, dudes are not playing games. They just want to talk about what we got versus what you got. That's what this kind of, deconstructed into. I don't get into that. For me, as a person who, again, that's my preferred place to play. I look at the games, I look at what's coming out, what I'm currently playing, the overabundance of what I'm playing, and I'm fine. I don't have that emotionality that something I played, another group gets to play a year ago, and this somehow affects my soul and affects my conscience. But here's the real point. The real point is, and I'm going to be brutally honest, a lot of people who their identity or their brand is tied to making revenue with Xbox, that's going to be a hit because we do have some data points to show since that business update, YouTube algorithms, search engines, Xbox stuff is down. So if you tie yourself to, if you're not a person who plays games and you tie yourself where your identity is just that, you may be in trouble long term. You may need to think about diversifying your portfolio. And I think a lot of that discourse stems from that because some people have really tied their entire identity to that. You know what I'm saying? And I get it. Don't get me wrong. There's some people that have legitimate concern. Are they devaluing their brand? I think that's a fair point. But to sit there and, in my opinion, completely lose yourself as if this is the end of the world, unless there's a financial backing thing to it, I just think it's a lot of emotionality is basically what I'm getting at. But it's an interesting time. As far as me, I'm fine. I see a ton of stuff that I can't wait to play and I'm excited to play. But I am curious to see how they move forward in this new zone of we're going to put stuff everywhere, and then also still do hardware. That I would like to see how that works out.
Yeah, I almost think at a certain point, squabbling over this stuff is not super worth. Like you mentioned a lot of stuff to play. Like I'm playing 4 different games right now, dude. Like I'm at like a crisis of like I have to finish a bunch of stuff. Like I started Mega Man 0-2 impulsively, which may have been stupid, but that's a short game. I love that. I love the Zero series though, man. It's so good. But I'm still in Dragon's Dogma 2, taking my time with it, but I dipped out of that for a little bit because I got Sandland early. I really like Sandland, so I'm sticking with that. Playing Eden Chronicle 100 Heroes because like anytime a pixel art game comes out, like I'm not gonna can't hold myself back. So I got like all these games running right now. It's like it's
Dragon's Dogma 2. Like
there's so
much
many stuff to enjoy
right now,
I'm fucked right now. Like I was looking. I'm actually kind of dismayed by how little I've played because Final Fantasy. Why does Final Fantasy VII Rebirth have to be so big?
I know.
Yeah, that's what killed me.
It's so
a lot of people
good.
were upset with me stopping at like I think 60 or 65 hours, and I was like, there's almost too much. Like I was like, I will come back later, like I did with Remake, and just knock out the side shit. Especially in this game when it's like 2 games in one. But a lot of people were super upset with me about that. But here, all I hear is people tired of it by like the 90-hour mark.
This is the song that doesn't end.
Yeah.
And like that's like how I feel about it every time I'm fucking playing it. Yes, it goes on and on, my friend. Like like I put it on, I play it for like 3, 4, 5 hours a day sometimes, and I'm like, and I love it. But I'm like, my big problem with games that I love is they're all too long, all of them.
As a JRPG fan, man, do I hear you?
I mean, I love like when I grew up on JRPGs, and none of them took this long. None of them.
Yeah,
like
they used to be so short.
I remember Dragon Warrior 7 being the first game where I'm like, does this game end? Like, after 80 hours or whatever, like 40, 50, 60 hours. I love that. Like do everything in 50 hours. That's sick. Love that kind of stuff. I actually think A and AA gaming are better for longer games because it's more mechanical on that side, as opposed to like the cinematic experience of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, where it's almost being distractive. Where I'm like, wait, what's happening? I've been doing. Chadley's been talking to me for like 25 hours. I have no idea what I'm doing now. What am I doing?
Am I the only one who doesn't hate Chadley? Like
I actually don't hate him either.
I but I had no idea. I was like,
me and Brad had a Chadley discussion.
I didn't think it was that problematic.
He's abusive. So he's verbally abusive to Mai, which I don't like, or May. But other than that, it's totally fine. But I love the game. It's just that when I think about the AAA games where I'm like, damn, this is a fucking serious ass game, they're all too long. Whether it's Red Dead Redemption 2, The Last of Us Part 2, like The Last of Us Part 2 was 5 to 7 hours too long. Red Dead Redemption 2 is probably 25 hours too long. I mean, that the entire last third of the game, which everyone knows what that is, it's totally different than the first 2/3 of the game. It's like, why did you even put this in here? Like, it's cool that you did that, but like, why? You had yourself a game. You had a game. Don't you see it? And so I feel like, I got to get onto other, like, I want to play Pacific Drive because that game looks fucking dope. I'm going to play Pentiment. I downloaded and bought that. I bought Hi-Fi Rush because I want to help. I'm going to look at the game.
I'm done with you. I'm done with you.
I didn't buy Sea of Thieves or Pentiment or Grounded because they're not my kind of game, but yeah, I'm glad we're all in agreement on this because I was really lamenting that on the last episode of Sacred. And I'm like, I can't take it anymore. When people say there are no games, like, what the fuck are you talking about? What are you talking about? Because we were talking about with Rebirth, we do this for a living.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who is playing this game? Like I keep thinking about it. I'm doing everything as I encounter it, right? So I'm in like the 7th area now, which I think is like the last area, but I've done all the little yellow dots, all the side quests, all the card games, like I'm doing it all. And I'm like 70 hours into the game and I'm thinking about it. And I'm like, who the fuck is doing this in real life? Oh, I go to work 9 to 5. I come home, I make dinner, I take care of my kids. I do it. And then you're playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Really?
I can't tell if you're insulting them now or not.
No, but it's
fucking dork.
I call them the life stealers. They're the life stealers for sure.
Come off like that. But I mean it more in the sense that, like, what is the expectation here? Final Fantasy VII Remake was so tight and so good. And I think this game's even better in a lot of ways. It's an extraordinarily good game. It's just, God, man. Like Dead Space Remake, that was a perfect game. When it comes down to it, just
my God. I beat it 3 times. I beat it 3 times.
Me too, actually. Yeah, I gotta get that platinum. Yeah. So, but I think about all the games that I'm ignoring and all of the rest. Yeah, that frustrates the shit out of me. That's almost a different topic because I have no idea what anyone's talking about. We grew up in the generation that you can count the number of NES games. They're countable. It's something like 800 or whatever. You know, it's like 20,000 games came out last year.
Yeah.
What are you fucking saying? You know, so I'm not really that focused even on what PlayStation or Microsoft are doing as first party publishers, because it almost is irrelevant. I mean, it's kind of crazy to say that, but it's almost like I don't even give a shit, really. Like it's awesome to get those games. Horizon, The Last of Us, whatever. Yeah, Uncharted, whatever it is. But that is so much less important to me now than it's ever been, because there are just so many more games. It almost speaks to like an agnosticism where I'm like, I'm looking at just, I'm not really paying your exclusives to play them. I actually ignore many of your exclusives in some sense. But the point I wanted to make before we move on about Microsoft's executives is simply this, that I, as an Xbox fan, would be really excited to get new people in there. Like I'm a sports fan. We were going to talk about baseball, right? It's like, just that's just my opinion. When Adam Gase was the coach of the Jets, right? For the first minute, he was the coach of the Jets, to the last second, he was the coach of the Jets. 2 years later, I was like, we need to fire this guy. We need to fire this guy. I fucking hate this guy. I hate this guy. And like, we would win a game and people would go, look, Adam Gase is good. I'm like, I don't give a fuck. Adam Gase sucks. I want him out of here. I know where this is going. You don't need it. Like, I want that sports energy brought to Microsoft, where it's like, get yourself a good manager, you know, or a good coach, you know?
So you wasn't happy when they brought Rex, when Rex Ryan came? You wasn't happy for Rex?
I did love Rex. So he stayed too long.
Okay.
But 2009, 2010 were the best years of my Jets fandom my entire life. You know,
the best equivalent I can say is Rex that's how people in the Xbox community feels about filling this regime. Because at the end of the day, it's like, at least fight for the damn gaming. Like, do you guys care about gaming? And that was the key. So I get it from the outside looking in, but as a person who is firmly implanted in the Xbox community, they still, well, maybe right now it's a little shaky because of the business update. But prior to the business update, I would say that the fandom was still high on what the vision was. The problem right now is confusion on the vision. What is it? And they're not explicitly being, transparent on that, even though the pundits like ourselves, we kind of see it, what on the writings on the wall, what we think they're going to do. Kind of thing. But I think that's what I get it, Colin. I get it. But again, you are coming from the perspective of the first place, always winning the championship, always getting the accolade. Right, you are the Yankees. Like you that's the bro. That's just what it is. Like you guys are so successful. If you live on this other side and you had Don Matrick and you don't like what we're doing, we got a console for you. Get out of here. Like, we don't care. It was spy camera and digital and movie. Like, it was awful. It was like, why is he here? Who is this guy? Like, please. So he's always, filling that group is always going to have that sentimental thing.
Yeah, that's fair.
Brand. That's what I'm saying? And the last point I'll say is back to your 8-hour thing. Yes, I agree with you. And that's why I was so excited when Hellblade 2 was announced. I was like, yes, 8 to 9, 10 hours. Yes. Mm-hmm. Not everything's open world. Not everything's 60 hours. Let me enjoy some games in that short project. But that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I fear for the new Uncharted game, which is inevitably coming with Cassie Drake probably as the protagonist, where I'm like, please don't do what I think you're going to do. Like, just Uncharted is a linear game. Please remember that it's a linear game.
Was Lost Legacy kind of open?
I didn't play Lost Legacy.
Oh, neither did I.
So. Not really.
It wasn't?
That game was a pretty short experience. Like, that felt like a tailored experience. I loved Lost Legacy.
Interesting.
But that's one that I have it on disc. That's one that, that felt like a really great, just like A to B experience, and it didn't waste your time.
Yeah, I love Uncharted. I love The Last of Us. I love The Last of Us 1, I should say. But I want to love Uncharted, and I like get what people dig about it. I'm hoping when I watch Indiana Jones this year, like for the first time, I'll understand, because I like Uncharted.
Oh, you've never watched Indiana Jones? That's interesting.
No, dude, but we'll get into that in my topic probably. But yeah,
sure.
I when it comes to Uncharted, like that's one I really want to connect with. Like, I have a close friend who just loves Uncharted. Like, he's replayed them all tons of times. Like, there's something about them that just people connect with, and I don't know what I'm missing. Because like Last of Us, I'm like, this is fucking great. It's brutal. It's gritty. These characters are so good. The music's phenomenal. But people love Uncharted. I just want to love Uncharted like them. Is it weird to like the first one a ton? Because I love at the end when you like get into the World War II submarine. I'm like, this is fucking sick, man.
No, the first one is
they
awesome.
just don't do that shit from what I remember. And I'm just like, man.
Yeah, Drake's Fortune is very, very quaint. No one, there's a little bit of revision about that game too, because it came out in 2007. Like no one really cared about it until like Uncharted. There was inevitably, it sold, a couple million copies, I think. And there was inevitably going to be a sequel. It was Uncharted 2 that really put Uncharted on the map.
Right.
And people went back and really enjoyed the first one again. I think the first one's awesome. I also think the Vita one that Ben made,
I like that
was
game
really
too.
good.
Oh, I like that one. Yeah.
Golden Abyss, written by friend of the show, John Garvin.
Yes.
All right. Well, let's move on. And Matty, let's stick with you since you said you had a topic that was kind of parallel. I guess we can get going on yours.
Yeah, new ventures. So, I've been obviously gaming my whole life, and I always said like it was just a joke on the shows I do or my channels, like, oh, I've never seen this, I've never watched that. Like I'm just movie TV illiterate. Like outside of pop culture ones like Marvel, Star Wars, like we could talk that, but for most of my life, it's just any references, any conversations. Oh, you've seen this movie? When da-da-da-da happens? And I'm just like, right over my head. Don't know what the hell you're talking about. And I don't know if I was ever going to write that wrong. Locke came to me December with like a 15-page spreadsheet, pretty much, or a PDF file, and pitched this idea, which ended up being the channel we opened up this past month, Retro Rewind. And it's just a channel where we talk about movie, TV, anime, and like it's designed to kind of get me watching these old movies again, but for the first time, and start keeping up with TV a little bit more in a manageable way. And at first I was shy of the idea because I was like, I do a lot already, dude. Like this is tough. And we figured out the logistics on like how we can do this. And it was like, do I want to do this? And I thought, this would be a good challenge for myself, because I'd say I have like a good read on games, I have a good critique of games, but it's very intimidating to think about like trying to even like taking out like the whole content side of things, like just tackling TV and movies. Like, this is a whole different world. But I also, as someone who loves stories and wants to make stories of my own, I'm like, I can't just be in the dark on classic stuff that's been made, because that can lead to that moment where you think you've made something fucking cool and then you go and realize like it's been done a million times before. So it was like this attempt to just get out of my pocket and really find something new to enjoy. But obviously with that came like, okay, if I'm going to start watching these movies and stuff, I'm going to need to ensure that I balance my life properly, because it's going to be an undertaking and I know I can do it. But there's, most of my days are super unstructured, which is funny because a lot of people go like, oh, you got a great work ethic, like you get a lot done, but it's because it all just happens at random hours in the day. Because like when you're doing Mr. Matty, you don't know when the news is going to hit, what you're going to talk about every day on that channel. Retro Rebound has a bit more of a plan, but now because of like Retro Rebound, Rewind, the Patreon, like we have to game plan and I have to schedule my days. And so for the first time in my life, since I was a student, I have like this structure to my day, and it's really exciting and it's fun. And I've like tried to start reading more. And so I've just been, it's like an entertainment exodus I'm going on. Like I'm just trying to not do it all and be perfect. It's resulted in a dial back in some days of game time. It's been a challenge and I'm still learning, but it's been fun to try something completely new to me, not just on an entertainment level, but like, can I talk about this in an intelligent way? What can I take away from this? I think we kind of provide something interesting, and just in general, not to promote it, but like, just because the most common comment we get is it's funny watching me pretty much connect everything to Star Wars and Marvel, because it's my only point of reference right now. So, we watch stuff like Interstellar, Pulp Fiction, Fight Club for the first time. Like I've just missed out on all these. Fight Club's fucking amazing.
It's so good.
I love Fight Club.
What did you think of Interstellar? Interstellar is my favorite movie.
I loved it too. Yeah, it was great. We've ranked them all. Interstellar would be third for me right now. And the problem is, what I've learned, and this is what's fun, is I won't say what game, but Interstellar reminds me a lot of another video game that I played that I really like. And I wonder if I experienced those out of order, how I would have felt. But I've seen a lot of Interstellar's ideas in media today. And that's a testament to it, right? I talk about it with Chrono Trigger, where like Chrono Trigger is so impressive. When you go back and play it, you're like, this is kind of unremarkable. But it's like, well, no, this is where so many of the first things of lots of things were done here. And obviously when you think of all the creative hands that were on that project that are so famous now, it makes even more sense. But it felt like that for me, like with Interstellar. And so it's just been fun to learn, I guess. I know it's entertainment, but it's been fun to learn and challenge myself and go on, as my topic is, some new ventures. And I wanted to know if you guys are doing anything to challenge yourselves this year at all, because for me, like ever since like my vacation and getting my health really in order, I feel the best I have, man. Like I really do. I feel happy. I feel good. I feel at peace. I don't know. Like it's like this emotional instability that was in me because of my health for so long is kind of gone, and I feel like more grounded. And so, like I'm like, oh, this is my year. Like let's fucking go. And so I feel like I have that extra push to kind of just go and tackle something new and make something of it. Obviously, LSM. If you look at the Patreon stuff, it was a huge inspiration. Like just a lot of lessons learned from working with you guys to kind of build what I'm doing over there too. Which I'm just so appreciative of being a part of all of this. So I want to know. I mean, especially like Colin, I'm curious because I know you do 1,000,001 things. So, but it's tough to like think of, hey, what do I want to do next, if anything next. But do you guys have any new ventures or goals or challenges that you want to tackle that you think you've been putting off? Because for me, I have been. And honestly, if it weren't for Locke just giving me this kind of golden idea and then offering to manage Retro Rewind entirely, I just have to make the thumbnails and label the episodes, and he kind of handles the rest. Because he believed in his idea enough. So he made it possible. Without him, I probably wouldn't have tried it. But, is there anything you guys have been looking to do, or any goals or ventures you're trying to do this year, or just even don't even put a window on it, just down the line even?
Yeah, I'm full of ideas, I guess. And there is one specific thing that I want to do that I can get into, but it's funny. Like I'm not in the exact opposite posture, but because I'm watching you do all this stuff. You're younger than me, and I'm like, that's so much work, And I had how old are you, Matty?
28.
Yeah, I mean, I was married in my work when I was 28, and to much to the chagrin of everyone else in my life, and at that time, and I am in a position now. You're in a much better position at 28 than I was. Like I was like an editor at IGN and stuff. I mean, that's great, but I wasn't like a financially, gainful thing or anything. I was just in the industry doing my thing. I think as I've gotten older, I'm 39 now. I have all of these ideas, and I express them even to Lockmore, actually, because when Dustin goes away for the birth of his child, who we've named Chris Colin Dustin Furman on Sacred Symbols. When he's born, he's got to. I told him he can go for as long as he wants. I was like, I feel like you can leave for 3 months or whatever, if that's what you want to do. And so we were talking to Locke about maybe doing some editing, and he was saying how he's doing stuff for you now, which I think is awesome, because I love Lockmore and I want him to continue to excel, and he doesn't need to be married to LSM. I want him to do the things that are best for him in his career. And I was thinking about you, Matty. I'm like, damn, that's a lot of shit Matty's doing. Yeah. I think it's fun and it's exciting, but I do worry about you in some sense too, because I think maybe the reason we've gotten along, part of the reason is because I feel like we're somewhat very similar in
we are
leaving it all on the field and working and having all these irons in the fire. And that's how I got here. And that's why you're wildly successful on YouTube, and the podcasts are doing great. And so it comes from hard work. I mean, that there's no doing this without having some sort of obsessiveness. So when people are like, oh, I want to, work to live, it's like, well, you can go work to live somewhere else because you're not doing that here. And I want not in a competitive media industry like this, you can't do that. But I've tried to kind of take the exact opposite track at this point, where my instinct is always to do more. Like there's just this thing where I'm like, do more. You can do something else, do something new. Mm-hmm. And then I look at like all the, like I'm on the Patreon right now, and I look at the logos at the top of the screen, and I'm like, damn, it's a lot of content.
Yeah.
Like I'm not that I'm on all of it, but it's like, how many more shows are we supposed to do for $5 a month? Like you might consider not doing anything. Now I'm not saying you, for me, like that was kind of my thought process, was like, you may consider for the first time in your life, just holding pat, and just saying like, this is it. Because I have all these things. Like I want to do like side quests. We used to do side quests, which was fun, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, damn, that was a great show on YouTube, and I'd love to do it, but I just don't need, like, why, And I try to kind of put it through the categorization from my own experience of all the things in my life that I don't tend to. Like, you're talking about your schedule. I haven't had a schedule in like 10 years, probably. Like I have rhythms. These shows go up, and these are literally schedules, but I don't really look at them like this, where it's like these shows go up on Thursday, therefore you do this on Wednesday, and so on and so on and so on and so on.
Yeah.
And these like overarching things. But in terms of like my day to day, it's like chaos in some sense. But it's
yeah.
And chaos is really a misnomer, because it's totally fine. It's just that I can do whatever I want. I woke up at fucking 1 PM, today. So, and I don't know why. I was supposed to sleep like 11 hours. It's depression, I guess. So
I wish. Slept like 6 hours last night. My
yeah,
body's
that's just not enough for me for some reason. But that's the point, is like, I in some case I am, in some sense I am envious, because there is a creative font that you're pulling out of that I don't really have anymore. I mean, even with Lily Mo, it's like, damn, like we have so many things going now too, because we release little games, so we need revenue, and so we need to release more things. And it's like, damn, I don't even have time to think about this stuff, but I really do need to think about it at some point. I usually put it off until the game's almost content complete, and then I start getting in there and doing things to them with the story, because out of sheer desperation, because we have to get these things out. But I feel sad about that in some sense, because I do miss the structure sometimes of being like, I used to just get up without an alarm clock when I worked at IGN. That's probably being tied so tight inside that you're nervous, but I would just get up, work out, go to work, come home, do my thing. And then I did have creative energy. That's how we started Kind of Funny on the side. And I think now I'm kind of all spoken for in that regard. Like I'm not at peak creative Colin right now. Definitely not. Might never be again. And I also must admit, and this is a big part of it, is that I feel like I've become somewhat complacent. Like, I'm comfortable, and I was talking about this with Micah recently, where I'm like, I can feel it. It's like, I'm totally fine. I never wanted very much. So having all of this is like incredible. I'm like, this is good. I'm good.
Yeah, I just want to reassure you before you continue. Like, there's not that I think you're saying that, but there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's kind of what I'm, I guess, working toward now, is like, I'm working hard now so that I can kind of in the later parts of my life really cool it for a little bit. I've worked since, I'm like, I think any of us here, I've worked since early high school. Like, I've always been doing YouTube, and I appreciate, because you mentioned like a concern. I know some people have vocalized it in the past, and honestly, I've been working less than really ever, just by the way things are structured, because there's much organization. Like, I sit down for 2 hours and I just record a bunch of videos, pass them to editors, and like, that's done. And like, so it's much more like a well-oiled machine. But to your point of like a creative font, I think mine stems from, we all have like that source to pull from. Yours may have been like your situation with Kind of Funny and moving to the next thing and building this empire, man. Like, you should be proud. You have every right to kick your feet up for a little bit after everything you've built. It's inspired me. I look at what you do and I'm like, dude, I would love to, not in an envious way, like have that, but like, I would love to just be able to have something to hang my hat on. Mine stems from existentialism 100%. I am so creatively driven because I play things or I experience things or I see people like you who are so good naturally, and I don't think it comes natural to me. I have to like bust my tail to get there, or at least it seems natural. Or I play something like a Persona 5 run, I'm like, dude, what am I doing with my fucking life? Or I watch the full out TV show, and I won't say what happens, but just like I get to the end and I feel so many things, and I'm like, that's such an intense emotion I experience very, very rarely. And I'm like, dude, I need to just try at least. And so that can sound obsessive, but I have some degree of control of like, this is it for a long while. Like, I want to do other things. Like, yeah, I'd love to write a book. Yeah, I'd love to do these other cool ventures, but I know my limits and I know I'm at it now. It's like, I cannot personally afford to take on more, but to just say that I take inspiration from you, and you have every right, dude, to chill. You're one of the hardest working dudes I know, but you built all of this up. Yes, we all helped out, but like, you did this. Like, you were here on your own at first, and look what it's turned into. So, I hope you don't come from a point of shame, because you have, again, every reason to just even if it's for a couple of months, dude, like, yeah, just
No, thank you. That's nice.
Enjoy it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I don't. I did work hard to get here. Again, very lucky, fortunate, timing, all the rest. But the dice rolls were good, and I got through. And yeah, it's a blessing to not have to really like. I have this, and we talk about it on Knockback all the time, like an existential worry of just not. My parents got divorced when I was young, and I was pulled around a lot, and didn't, had no permanence and all of that. And so I've been kind of subconsciously obsessed with that my entire life. Like since then, just being like, set up something for yourself, be steady.
Yeah.
Don't worry about anything. And all of that. But to answer your question more fruitfully, I guess, and I'll pass it on to other people, obviously, after this, is just the one thing that I do want to get going, and I think that I will get going. I think bringing back SideQuest is possible. It's really just going to require me to have the energy to write scripts and record them, like if I want to do that or not. But the kind of the parallel thing is, and I've talked about this extensively, is that I really think that there is a place for, and these kind of exist in some form, but they're smaller, they're different, or they're more AAA, is print strategy guides, like boutique print strategy guides. So I only learned, I know this because we have a very hardcore audience or whatever, but it's crazy how much money you can make selling physical video games. And we learned this by selling our own physical video games. So when we sold Super Perils of Baking on PS4, I funded the full production of those games, and we sold them at a very affordable rate. And to the point where people were like, why aren't you charging more for them? Micah didn't speak this. This is like a regular thing where it'd being like, why are you only charging this amount? I'm like, damn, like how much money do you want me to extract from you? But it set in my mind, not for our own audience, but a broader way, that there is an appetite to spend on physical goods. And I'm like, well, there are physical games manufacturers. East Asia Soft is our co-publisher. You have limited run games. You have a bunch of people doing this stuff, especially for PlayStation and Switch. It's harder to do it on Xbox because you have to print so many more copies, and there's just a whole different set of rules, and there's just not a huge market there, which is the only reason we don't sell there, because otherwise I'd love to make money off of Xbox fans too. But I was like, damn. Yeah, but I was like, damn, I love strategy guides. It's what everyone knows. I came up in the industry doing them, and I was inspired by them, and like the strategy guides and Nintendo Power and the ones that would come with your games. You guys might remember when you would get some Super Nintendo games and you can send into Nintendo Power, and you would get a year subscription, but you would also get like a one-off magazine, like a one-off, and it could be like the Link to the Past strategy guide or tips and tricks or whatever. I used to just hoard those things. I loved them. Mm-hmm. And what I've realized is I'm not the only person that loved those things. And there are companies that stick around and do some limited print strategy guides, but they're for usually like Future Press, I think, does them, but they're for big games. I actually want to do it for indie games, small games, and have it as part, like, so games that could sell several thousand copies physically. What about a 500 print run of a really high end strategy guide for that? That's $40 or something like that. Could you make money on that? Could you do that with the access to the game? Could you make them for sizable enough games where they would make sense? So for a great example of one that I would love to, and maybe even would be able to, because of my relationship with them, is to test it out on, is Mina the Hollower from Yacht Club. It's like, that's the kind of stuff I'm thinking, like, that could use a print strategy guide. It's perfect for that. And so that's the one thing that I do think about that I can't get away from, because I think of all sorts of things. Like, having made more money as I've gotten older, it's like, well, what do you want to do with it? Do you want to invest it? I've thought about Mike and I thought about it. It's like, should we like buy silent shares in a restaurant? Should we like do this? Should we do that? Like, what do you do with it? Do you buy more real estate, become a landlord, like do that kind of stuff? And it's like, this is one of those things I do really think about, where I'm like, I feel like if I just had one iota of more patience and any more time and like inclination, I would totally get something like this off the ground, and I would write the first one myself, to really like get it going. So that's to your idea of new ventures. That's the one thing that's parallel to all of this that I think that that's conceivable that would happen. And it's something that I would love to do. We've learned so much by doing our own merch, and the power of that, and the power of physical goods. It's annoying to deal with all of this stuff, but if you're willing to do it and you're willing to house it and ship it, you can make a lot of money. Yeah. And so I don't even think it would be that risky or expensive. People vanity publish shit all the time. I just I just kickstarted this amazing G.I. Joe book that we just got. It was Kickstarter like a couple of years ago, which was like hundreds of dollars. And it's just amazing, bespoke, vanity published, beautiful quality, high res imagery of every G.I. Joe toy, all the packaging, everything. And I'm like, this is so good. And it's for a few thousand people.
Yeah.
If we have learned anything from our experiences on the internet, especially through Patreon, it's that like the mass market means nothing to the success of this company. It's really about
small handful, really.
Yeah, we have right now 13,573 people paying them every month for the show. That kind of traffic would kill, as you all know, normal YouTube channels that were done full time. But we don't have to play by those rules because we have paying subscribers. So that's why I want to do parallel things, though, is because I feel like we extract maximum value from our own audience, and I don't want anything else from them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So everything else has to be like an optional purchase. That's where merch and all that comes from to begin with. So yeah, as far as my new ventures, that's what I would say. I would leave it there.
Nice.
Oh, Matt, yeah, Cog. Let's go to you next. Sorry, I didn't know if you. Yeah.
No, it's cool. It's cool. Yeah, this is a good one, Matty. You got me thinking. I'm definitely in I would consider a transitionary period in my life, and as a person, who's done IT for over 10, 15 years, it came natural to me. And that definitely was my first passion. Obviously, gaming has always been that. It's always been number one, but it was just one of those things where it's just like, yeah, but can you really make a living doing that? Kind of thing. And it's not, it's so volatile, it's so unstable. It is just, I'm also a late bloomer in that respect. I never thought I would be able to even get into podcasting and, doing all that stuff. And from a content creator standpoint, that was never on my radar. So that just kind of came with it. And I do have a lot of love for Addict, for that, because our friendship kind of developed into me having my own voice in the community, and then, having the confidence to say, you know what, people actually care what I think about, saying kind of thing. Especially, I consider myself like an older gamer. So, when people are like, no, Cog, you got younger sensibilities. You always tell me back, like, no, you got this kind of youthful energy.
And, you do. You got more energy than me.
Yeah. And it's just like, it's interesting. So that was the first thing, like, just understanding the climate of content creation. But, for me, the transitionary period now is kind of like, as you get older, you realize you want to go where your heart is. You just can't do something you can't stand. I don't care how much money you're making. If you can't stand it, or I can't stand it, it's not going to work for me.
Yeah.
I just can't. And I'm one of the rare breeds in that sense that I've walked away from big deals or huge opportunities financially because I know I can't do that specifically long term. It would drive me crazy.
Yeah.
So I'm in the pocket where it's like, I would take less money if it's something I want to do. So yeah, I mean, as far as the new actual things to your question, gaming, obviously, this kind of ties into my topic because I'm just going to talk about milestones, but like gaming was something I didn't see myself going, and then I kind of got into it, and I'm like, wow, especially like, the meta situation, like, wow, didn't think I'd ever, that's a milestone I made. Okay, but now I want to stay in it, but I want to do a pocket that I actually love. What's coming up right now, which is weird, is esports. It keeps calling me. And it's weird because, obviously at first I was like, these kids, okay, cool. But I am a competitive person. I come from that arcade thing. I can't, me with the tech and the sports. I was the Madden kid. I was the Call of Duty kid. I was the Prestige. We get the homies with fragging, and I'm looking at these. All right, stop it, Matty. they go Clock is gonna clip me. They go Astro Parrot's gonna clip me. I already know. But the thing is, like, I look at these kids and I'm like, man, they are so much more talented than me. Like, me and my prime, I'm like, I was a beast. But I look at them, and I just been doing more research, and I'm looking at opportunities there, and things keep coming up. So I'm gonna go, like, to my first what is it called, Dream Hack, which is like the Super Bowl for these kids, to go check this thing out. And I think for me it's two-part. One, the skill level evolved. Two, I've actually been speaking to people who are like parents of these like huge superstar kids who are like the number one player in Fortnite, the number one player in Call of Duty, these teams. And I'm just like, wow, this is really interesting. Like, how do you as a parent, process this? Because I'm from the era of, video games is, going to wrap your brain. You're not going to get anything out of this. Like, yeah, I'm from that era. And now I'm seeing these like parents where their kids are making more money than them. And like, it's just insane to me. So, and I'm going to be honest, the business side of me, Colin, looks like, wow, there's a lot of opportunity here. Mm-hmm. Oh boy. Certainly. You know what I'm saying? Kind of thing. Yeah. And they seem very interested in me. And I'm just one of those people that are like, I don't like to get into something unless I truly do research, even though there's interest on that side. I want to make sure I pick a pocket that I kind of fit in. So yeah, I'm looking at, potentially collaborating in the future. We'll see if that leads to something. Right. Ultimately, IT will always be my foundation. I'm good at that. I've done that, sysadmin, cloud admin, PC repair, done all that stuff. But, if I could somehow keep this pocket in gaming and not have to fall back to the IT aspect of gaming and actually doing other things like this, this opportunity, then yeah, I'm going to pursue it. So stay tuned, nothing concrete. I'm really though taking a more serious approach as far as really ingratiating myself with esports and seeing what's going on there. So yes, I'll keep you posted if things change.
I love that. I love that you talked about. It reminds me of, I call it like the levers of life. Like life's just a series of levers. They all got their own labels on it, like, IT, gaming, esports, and like you're turning down IT a little bit. Like that's been on for a while and you're flipping up the esports lever and giving that some love. Cause yeah, it's important to really focus on it because it's interesting. Like we're all very like driven by like work and our creations and all that stuff. And so like a lot of people view that, like, it was interesting. I'm going to speak of the Last Stand Reddit for just a moment here. So it's just part of me. When we made this announcement about like Retro Rewind and stuff, like the reception over there was it's pretty terrible. Like it was like, fuck this guy. Like, what's he doing? He can't be playing or doing anything. It was actually pretty insulting. I was like, wow, they think I'm just incapable. Like, I just can't handle it. But
really, are people were saying that?
This was Last Stand's Reddit though, but it's
Reddit.
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
okay. Well,
It was real bad.
Yeah. I was just like,
it's coming at the boy.
Yeah. It wasn't good. I was just like,
they're not very nice over there.
Everyone else was positive, and so when I got sent the thread, I'm like, oh sweet, like let it rain. Like they even like me, and I clicked. I was like, okay. I should expect. But where was I going with all of that? I brought that up. Oh yeah, because like what are the points of reception for the people who weren't a fan of it? Is like, oh, you're driven by the dollar, and it's like, Colin, I'll borrow like a talking point from you because you said like if you wanted to make money, you pretty much shut most things down. Work sacred symbols, take every ad deal, and just fucking call it a day, right? And it's very similar to me and my operation. I'm like, if I really want to make money, like starting a new channel is not what you do. Like, I just go and pump Mr. Matty, maybe Retro Rebound, and I let the Patreons rest.
Totally.
And just call it a day. I respect that, we as a group are very driven by, like, Colin, you said, like, I make money, like, where it's about what you do with it. And, like, I don't know many people who hear many people who are extremely successful and operate like that. I feel like we're in a world where you get that cash and, you pocket it, go get a nice car. But like, I've never been infatuated with that stuff. Like I technically could sit on a decent amount of cash as I get my monthly income, but I give it to people to do jobs. It's not like I'm paying full-time salaries by any stretch of the imagination, but I like that Cog, what you said really resonated with me about, focusing on that quality of life. Because I'm like, for me, what is that quality of life? And it's like, it's making things and working with people. And I love doing that. And so it's not about, that big dollar at the end. I mean, making money's nice. And I want to afford to live in my house and take care of me and mine. Like that's important to me. But beyond that, like, I don't know if any of us are out to get rich and that's it. Like, it's about enjoying what we do and making a living through that. I think that's all you can really ask for in this life is just
I think
work, not feeling like work.
Yeah, no, look, don't get me wrong. I like money.
Yeah, of course. We all like money. Yeah.
But I'm more aligned with where Colin is like at some point, what's the level of comfortability, right? And my thing is, to me, there is that. This is what I learned in corporate, and I'm not saying I'm not going to go. So I'm not going to put any definitive statements like I would not go back. I'm not saying that. But what I will say is that it's about, okay, performance reviews. how great I am, proving how great I am, and to continue to grow upon that, right? And that's great. There's people who have that drive, but at some point, when is enough, and when are you actually satisfied and enjoying what you're doing, right? Yeah. And I think that's the kind of the pocket I hear Colin talk about, which is like, I'm good. Like I'm at a level of comfortability where I'm, totally cool with where things are going, and that's where I want to be. I want to have that balance. You know what I'm saying? And it's a hard one sometimes, because sometimes you may have to do other things. But yeah, I think it is interesting because I think ultimately that will be my goal wherever this path takes me now. You know what I'm saying? To get to something where I absolutely still love doing it. That's a new passion, a new thing of mine, and it's in gaming, right? And that's where the pocket that gives me the most joy. But at the same time, I can still be able to support myself in a very comfortable way. But we'll see.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Just from I've said this many times, but I've become almost more fiscally liberal as I've gotten older, because I've made more money and realized over time how people with money keep money, accumulate more of it, how trivial it almost is in some sense, and how difficult it is to live without. And I just don't want very much. Like, I really just want security. I don't want to live an affluent life. I never wanted that. I've said a million times, a very inspirational book for me is the 90s book, The Millionaire Next Door, which is all about, people making money at any level and just living a normal life of comfort and no worry, but not having to have opulence around you.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's kind of what Flow did for me. It was like this book of like happiness at even the bare minimum level. And it was like, you just don't need much.
Right. It was a big thing at the turn of like the aughts, where there were like a lot of blogs being written by people where it's like they live on almost nothing, but they live like really good lives, and like how little can you live on and stuff like that. And it was fascinating to see that. And I think I'm doing so much better than IGN or Kind of Funny could have ever provided for me, that it's like, this is great. I'm good.
Yeah.
And it makes me feel even worse having had nothing and walked out of college with a shit ton of debt and all that kind of stuff, being like, damn, man, there are just a lot of people that are just never going to be able to do this or anything like it, making a lot of money, and they really have to scratch for it. And it's like, why do I need so much?
Yeah.
Like, I'm already doing so much better. Like, why do I need so much? Why do I have to be so gratuitous? Why does it have to be so unfair?
Yeah, I think everyone who has that moment where like you have a big blow up, like your Patreon or like my channel, you have that come to Jesus moment where you're like, okay, this is more money I've ever seen, like for this point in my life. Like, what do I do with this? And I think that's where your character's really decided. And you go one way or the other.
For sure. I buy crack. Micah? We haven't heard from you in a while, my dear. Let's hear your voice on this topic.
Yeah, this is a good one that all these topics were a surprise for me, basically, because I stepped in late. So I was like a little nervous, like, oh no, what if it's going to be something I have no idea about, like Star Wars or something? But thankfully, Matty and Cog coming in with like, the philosophical ideas. No, what holds me back from all the things I want to try really is like a lack of confidence. And it's something I just need to work through. I love writing. I love writing short stories. I'm also the person who is terrified to pick up the pencil because I think I won't like what I see on the page. I just don't even start. That's what I end up falling into. And in various regards with art, with actual drawings and things like that, I'm the person who's afraid to even try because I'm like, well, it probably won't be good anyways. Mm-hmm. What I need to work on is getting into the mindset of you're doing this because you like it. You're doing this because it makes you happy. It's not a side hustle. It's not something to be productive or to make money. A lot of this, though, just comes down to what you constantly see online and just in, kind of the business we're in of everything can be monetized. And it's like, well, in some ways, it ruins what I actually want to truly just be a hobby. Gaming has turned into a job in a sense, and that's really cool. But at the same time, it's like, I need to have some things that I strictly derive joy from. And I don't need to feel a lack of confidence or, oh, I'm not good enough to write something. It's like, well, why not if I'm writing it just for myself? If I'm writing it just because I enjoy writing it, not because I'm trying to sell a book type deal. And this is not a knock on like Matty or anything in the terms of like, oh yeah, like if you can monetize something and you want to, that's fantastic. Sure. For me, it's holding me back from doing things strictly for pleasure. it'd be like, Matty, if you were like, you know what, I'm gonna start going on roller coasters, gonna film every single one of them, and like this is versus you just saying, you know what, Laylee and I want to. Versus like you saying, you know what, Laylee, you and I are gonna go try some roller coasters just for fun.
Yeah.
What I need to do is the just for fun mode
I feel that
and
part.
stop telling myself that if it's not good enough to sell, it's not good enough to do. And it's like, well, that's not true. I love my arts and crafts and things, and it needs to just be for me. And I need to put aside the lack of confidence that like, well, if it's not good enough to show people, why are you doing it? And it's like, because it makes you happy. And that's a reason to do something. I also, though, I need to work on what you're talking about, Matty, with a schedule. I thoroughly enjoyed COVID because I got to work from home and I didn't have this, half-hour commute anymore. I was still working my IT job at the time when everything went down. And I fell apart, though, in a lot of ways. I used to be the person, I got up every day at 6 and I was at work by 8. Suddenly it's like, okay, I'm working remote. I'll wake up a half hour before I need to log in because you don't have to put on a nice outfit. You don't have to do all this stuff.
It's the remote IT.
And right. And it was detrimental to me in many ways, though, because on the one hand, it got me through the pandemic. I was living by myself, not seeing people for like 2 weeks at a time. That was a horrible space. But having that little kind of extra leeway with work kind of got me through it. But now I'm struggling to get back into a routine because on the one hand, you say, well, you don't have to. Yeah, you don't have to get up early, but I should. I need to get back into the space of actually structuring my time a bit more because it's things I'm missing out on. I've talked to you, Cog, earlier this year. I really wanted to get back into a more sustainable workout routine. And like my goal just being to work out like, 2 to 3 days a week. That's the goal, not stressing myself out about it like I used to, trying to work out like 5 days a week. And even that, though, is tricky because the nature of my job, things just kind of come up randomly. Like today, I wasn't supposed to be on today, but it was like, oh, Dagan's out. I'll hop in. That's all good. But it does I don't have a normal structured routine. Yeah, that will always be the case just because of what we do. But I can manufacture more time for myself if I'm willing to set a wake up time every day, if I'm willing to do those extra things to say, you're going to go to bed early. There's no reason that you keep staying up till 3 a.m. Like there just isn't. And it's things like that I certainly need to do if I'm going to pursue some of these interests that I have, like writing, like playing bass more regularly. It's things like, I pick up the bass and I get to play it for like 15 minutes before I start making dinner. And it's like, I could do that every day if I planned for it. Versus like, oh, I have time today, won't have time tomorrow. It's something that I could absolutely fit into my life if I put in the effort to actually sit down and similar to making a budget, but like making a budget of my time and what can I do every day. And also accepting that I don't have to dedicate an hour to this. It can be 15 minutes a day. That's better than nothing, so because that's where I was at with working out and trying to fit that into my schedule, feeling very much like, well, if you don't work out, 4 or 5 days a week, you might as well not, which is stupid. That's the dumbest idea I ever had. But for some reason, I was so married to, well, I want to work out that much. And then feeling discouraged and feeling like, well, if you can't meet this level, you might as well not try.
Do it. Yeah.
And then that's dumb.
Yep.
So these are the things I want to work on as we get through the year of structuring my time better and setting myself a much better sleep schedule and just getting into more of my hobbies again and getting back to my more analog hobbies like cross stitching and watercolors, things that I put aside because we are just constantly bombarded with the idea of like, sell it. Like, and I mean this not in a bad way. Like I'll have family members be like, oh, like that's a really cute little thing you made. You could sell that. And it's a compliment. But at the same time, you almost start to feel like, well, geez, I'm not going to sell it. I could be doing something else that could actually make money. It's just kind of detaching myself from the idea that everything I do has to be productive in some way versus just having a hobby because you like it, watching a TV show because you like it. I actually did, like when Dagan brought up recently, oh, maybe we could watch Community for Knockback. And I was like, please don't, because I like Community and this will ruin it because
Ah.
having to time crunch some of these television shows was horrible. Having to watch 4 episodes of Game of Thrones in a single day was like torture. And I liked it. You know, it was the first time I ever watched it was when Colin watched for Knockback, those, 2 years ago.
Mhm.
But it's like, this is not an enjoyable way to consume media. This is not anything that's good for us to be like, yeah, you know what, let's watch all these episodes of Community as quickly as possible for Knockback.
Yeah.
And there are some things where it's like, we got to like move away from some of the old ways we did things. And you haven't done a TV series in a bit, because it just was like this constant consumption of shows and almost to the point of like ruining them.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm looking forward to doing this year, giving myself a better routine, trying to just give myself more time for these hobbies while also not getting burnt out on gaming. Because some of it is like when gaming is strictly like my job and my only hobby, and it just starts to feel like a slog at sometimes. And it's like, because there's not enough variety in my day, because I'm not taking time to do other things. So that's kind of what I'm pivoting towards, is more time for those analog hobbies. Reading, like you mentioned, Matty, I was doing really well last year with like reading every day, even if it was just for a few minutes.
Yeah.
And this year I've struggled with it so much, partly just anxiety and not being able to focus on things. We had a lot of travel so far this year, which I'm not a traveler. I'm a homebody.
Same.
And so now that we're past all those things, I feel so much more at ease. And I know that I'll be able to like focus on that again. But that's what I'm feeling as soon as I saw your topics. Like, oh, this is perfect. Because there are a lot of things I want to get into this year.
Speaking of my soul.
She said a lot of things.
Yeah,
a lot of things that resonated.
I love your focus and your mindset, because it highlights how different we are in some way. Because like for me, I felt trapped by my job when I was just doing Mr. Matty, because I was just reviewing games, talking about news. I was dominated by the modern cycle. And so by opening Retro Rebound as an example, like I always wanted to go back and play these old games, but I never did. But it forced me to make the time to. So it's just interesting to hear how you've approached it versus how I've approached it, because it is wildly different. But you're totally right that I think it's so important that it's very easy. You can monetize literally anything in this life, right? And it's so easy to do so. We're in I always say, like, the age of entrepreneurs. Anyone can start a business at any time with literally anything. I'll just say, I spoke to a fucking energy drink brand one time. They wanted to partner with me, and they said, we're the shit posters of energy drinks. I'm like, how is that a fucking thing? Like, that's what I literally asked them. I was like, how is that a thing? But anything can be a business model nowadays. And so it is important to keep certain things to you. For me, it's exercise, reading, and a few others. But it's good, Micah, that you have that focus, because I think that shows that you're not attached to the way the world is right now in a healthy way, I think.
Yeah, in a healthy way. Yeah.
Because certainly I'm guilty of it, right? I'm watching shows and shit, making content. I love it. But there's definitely an aspect of it that it's like, wow, you're just driving your whole business through your life. And I mean, for me, the benefits are like me and Laylee spend a lot more time together. Like, I'm not just in here huddled down playing games. Like, we're watching TV and movies together. Like, there's a lot more quality time and all of that, which is really nice. But yeah, there's definitely like those drawbacks of like, you've now monetized all of your entertainment. Like, how do you feel about that? And it's like, we're gonna see how it shakes out. But like, I feel pretty good about it. But what you said is very, very good, because I feel like we as workaholics and guys who love,
we're the workaholics.
Yeah, like we love doing everything for the hustle of the game. And so to have someone chime in and be like, well, I actually want to do the opposite is excellent. And I really respect that about you.
Yeah, I just want to add on, because Micah said a lot of points that really resonated with me. It's the balance. And I think even me and you talked about this, Matty, which in terms of like, look, we know when there's something that's going to be great for content creation. And obviously we're trying to sustain ourselves. But at that same time, what the fight that I have sometimes is that sometimes, like even with gaming, the heart wants what the heart wants. And sometimes, even though you know, okay, this is the zeitgeist thing, I should be focused on this. This will do great for the channel or great for whatever. Sometimes the heart just says, you know, I want to play Tekken and Destiny or whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? Whatever it is, it's hard sometimes, because then you don't want to get that to be resentful and then spill into your work sometimes, right? And it's tough. It's a tough one, because, and that's one thing I try to pride myself on doing, which is like, all right, yes, there's some things gonna do when the time comes, no doubt. But there's other times it's like, okay, you know what? You got to take a break from that and do what you want to do, what makes you happy at this exact moment. The heart says, I want to play that, or I want to do that right now. And I'm going to finish that right now because this is where I am. The other thing that you said in reference to, obviously, we're fellow IT, brothers and sisters here, but, I struggled too with remote work. It sounds amazing. And I'm not saying it's still, it's negative, but from a person who transitioned from strictly going into the office, having that structure, routine, breakfast, interacting with people. And don't get me wrong, it was great to roll out of bed 20 minutes before the Zoom meeting. And, you said, don't get me wrong, there are benefits, but I did feel like I lost a little bit of structure there. And to your point about now transitioning with working out and stuff, I love what you said, because you still got to fight for that. That helped me, my sanity during that period, making sure I still, even if it's like, gym going to close at 11, you see sometimes I put up a health as well close late, but I'm like, hey, I'm going to get there.
I see it. Like, we'll finish Duke late. You'll post
I'm
like 11.
Damn. I'm like, I'm going to get, one time I was in traffic, I was like, I should just turn back. I'm only going to get like 30 minutes in or 15 minutes in. And I'm like, still go. It's better than nothing. It's better than being complacent. And it's a daily struggle. It's a weekly struggle. And sometimes you get in there 3 times. Sometimes you get in there 2 times, but it's just to get in there. So I like that you said that as well, because keep fighting for that. That definitely helped during the period of working remote and being stagnant, right? During COVID, we're really stagnant. We're really sitting in sedentary. So it was really tough. The belly was looking crazy. It was wild out here, man. So I was like, it's not good. So the last thing I said will help me with the stopwatch and the smartwatch and help. You haven't been moving. You've been, you've been set, so that type of stuff is all good. But I definitely hear where you're coming from, Mike, on that.
No, absolutely. Because Colin and I joke that we've gone feral, but it is, there's truth to it, because I really did. I went from working, in my previous jobs, working at a factory, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., 5:30 to 3:30, like doing things like that. And then transitioning to now I have no schedule hardly, except for if there's a show recording, then that is something I have to do that day. Otherwise, it's like, okay, the post office is open from 10 to 4. You just have to drop off the packages anytime between then, type deal. Like, there just really is, in this current job, there is no need to be super punctual for hardly anything. Like, my punctuality comes through when, like, I had a doctor's appointment yesterday, got to be on time for that. But otherwise, we just don't have these like set schedules, and it has been bad for me. It starts out, like you said, Cog, it starts out, you're like, this is amazing. There's no downside to having like this freedom. And then if you're someone like me, though, who has never been a morning person, who really struggles with keeping a routine, even though you thrive with routine, it has been, some negative effects that I just need to actually sit down and just force myself to do it.
You just gotta set things now. That's all.
I should set an alarm every day. I hate it. I hate the alarm. It makes me, I'm that possum that, like, you open up the lid of your barbecue and the possum's hissing at you. Like, that's me when the alarm goes off in the morning. But it's a necessity of like, I got to start doing this, or I'm not going to make progress with any of the things that I want to pursue. I do love writing those short stories. It's something that just brings me just so much joy, but I'm not doing it because I tell myself, oh, you don't have time. You only have 10 minutes to sit down. Well, that 10 minutes is 10 minutes. So this has been a really great conversation to have with you guys, because it is something that I need to really force myself to do and stop feeling like there's nothing I can do about it, because that's not true. I'm just being lazy, and I just got to give myself a good kick and get into it.
Yeah, it's just about that kickstart. 100%. No, it's just, willpower. I mean, lately struggle with a similar thing, and it's just one of those things where once you get started, it's like a momentum thing, right? That you just keep rolling. So once you get started, you'll get it all. I promise.
Yeah, that's my workout every day. I never want to work out. I just do it because I work out pretty much every day. So it's just that's
the one thing I've struggled with. Like, after I finish a day of work, driving like 20 minutes to the gym has been brutal. Like, I just can't. I'm literally looking into a home gym because of it. I'm just like,
do it.
Home gym is the
way.
We
have.
Oh, dude, I'm looking at like Force USA has it. I'm talking like a fucking like.
Oh, you going there?
Oh, dude, I'm ready to invest because I'm like this. I'm not bad at working out. It's just like, it was easy when I had my studio space. I was in a plaza, dude. I would finish work, leave, and walk across the street. Jim was right there.
Nice.
Staring me in the face. I had
wow.
no excuse. And I was there
Wow.
consistently. I was the best I looked. I don't think I look bad now, but I was like, dude, I can get into shape if I need to. I usually have that extra push, but again, with my health issues, I learned to respect my limits more. And there were those times where I was like, okay, you've been going since 9 a.m. It's now 8.
Yeah.
You need to go just sit on the couch, dude. Like, just
Perfect.
go veg out.
All right.
Sorry, that won't went long.
No, that's all good. Let's leave it there. All right. Time for our third topic. Lord Cognito, I go to you to hear from you today.
Yeah. Milestones. See, me and Matty seem to be in a similar pocket. I know he's doing things. I'm doing milestones. So I just started thinking about it. I was just like, one, like, how do you process achieving them? If at all, do you document them? Do you have like a bullet point of things, that you kind of want to get done, but also things that you've already done, like, things that you're proud of. So, I'll kick it off. For me, it's, I think I've told the driver's license story when Constellation before, but the abbreviated version is that I, as a person who went to college and initially thought I was going to be like an electrical engineer or something, and I remember my first couple of courses after all the remedial stuff is done, and I'm like, I absolutely hate this. This is not what I came here for. I feel you guys are hustling me. This is BS. Why do I have to wait to the second or third year to learn this stuff? And it just wasn't something that really interested me. So I finished my associates. And my mom was furious with me. Like, she was just like, I can't believe you're going to stop. And my passion wasn't there. I even switched my major to computer science, thinking that, and it was just, I think my first course was so rudimentary, Matty. I was just like, they are stringing me along for more money to save the stuff that I really need to learn in the last year. Like, I was bad. So needless to say, I stopped after my associates, which caused a big problem with mom. And I remember, having, I think at the time, Colin, remember Comp USA?
Of course.
Okay. So at the time, and Micah, you'll appreciate this story too. I was technical, but I wasn't IT savvy at the time, but I knew something was wrong with my mom's computer, and then, someone came to fix it. And I just started questioning him. I was like, well, where did you learn that? How did you do that? What school did you go to? And he was like, I didn't go to college at all. I went and got certified as an A+ certified technician. And I'm like, really? PC repair and networking. And I'm like, okay. And then, how many years? Oh, 8 months. What? 8 months? Where's this sorcery at? Like, I want to learn more. So I just started to do my own research. And long story short is I end up, putting myself in these type of courses and getting specialized in very specific fields. And, I was very proud of obviously doing this while I was working a full-time job, and getting all this stuff done. So one of the milestones is obviously I get certified, but my first IT job, it was around 9/11 what happened, and all the job market was terrible for IT guys. And, a lot of high level people were taking entry level jobs. And I'm like, well, I got my pieces of paper. I got my certification. How come I can't, get a job? And what ends up happening is I applied for something in like Connecticut, I didn't have a car. I didn't have a driver's license. I didn't have anything. I was like, yes, I'm willing to do it. And I just rushed and got all this done, learned how to drive in like 2 weeks time, go to the job, and that was when me and my mom kind of made up. She's like, I see your passion for this, and I'm going to help you with that first down payment on that car.
Oh,
I'm going to help you because I've never seen, because she's like, I didn't believe in your vision at first, what you was doing, but I haven't seen your passion like this. So I know this is what you want to do. So I was like, all right, cool. So Bob Dukes is on board. So getting the license, getting the certification, and then that continued on to more certifications, cloud and systems admin stuff. But I think the next thing as far as milestones, as far as like, again, when I talked about gaming was something I always wanted to do, but I never thought I'd be able to get into. So then now getting into it, a milestone for me is actually, being told by my peers and my heroes, like, oh, you're actually pretty good. Like you're a talented individual. And I'm like, oh man, thank you. Like that's super cool. Just meeting, obviously the Peter Moores and the people the heroes that or the people, the game creators, and even the content creators, the Colin Moriartys, the Ryan McCaffreys, you know what I'm saying? Like people you've watched for a long time, and for them to sit there and say, you know what? I want to work with you. Let's do something together. Let's, you bring an interesting perspective. I think that's super dope. So, and I think obviously, which I mentioned before, being in the games industry at one point, actually getting and working at Meta for 2 years and making somewhat what I feel is the difference, which is, protecting, kids and people in the online, the virtual space from very bad actors, to my own home. But yeah, there was some very serious offenders where, obviously government and police had to get involved to save people who were in serious danger and, being responsible for helping and protecting people in that space when there really wasn't a lot. I look at it like the how Xbox Live, PlayStation Network was in the beginning, Mike. Remember, like it was kind of like the Wild Wild West. You jump in these party chats. If you remember the old 360, there were even designations. It was like pro, underground. Say all these things based on
Right.
the level of interaction you're going to be doing online. This is all new, so that. And then I think for me and Matty, I've told this story on Duke, which is one thing that I wanted to do and make sure I get across as a gamer is like, look, you guys are great. You have this great social network, but gamers don't want to use their government name playing VR and playing it. Like, no, we are not. And so I fought very hard in those meetings and to be able to do the program to separate the username. You create your own gamer account. There's nothing linked to Facebook with your family or your name and your government, none of that. So to get that initiative off the ground and see that through was really cool. They're doing great things now, and I don't have anything ill to say. I still have a great relationship with a lot of those people over there, but those are some of them. So I just wanted to kind of pick y'all brains, as far as like just milestones in general. Again, you have more, the ones that you have, do you process them? What's the ones that's most important to you? I do want to start with Colin on this because there's a part of me that's like, I know you've achieved a lot already, but I want to know about that, like the milestones and just in general, what means a lot to you? Are there still any more that you have?
Yeah, I hope there's more, who knows, maybe I'm going to fucking die and there's not going to be any more milestones for me. But, I think professionally there were, and I guess academically there were like these milestone events for me that were very reaffirming. Working at Massachusetts Historical Society as an intern when I was at Northeastern was like an amazing, I couldn't even believe I ended up there. I had no idea how I got there. For people that know history, which is probably not many of you that would give a shit, but the Massachusetts Historical Society is the oldest historical society in the United States. And it has an amazing collection of things. It's near Northeastern, actually, in Boston, and I think it's on Mass Ave, if I remember correctly, or Boylston, and Boylston Street. And you have to like get buzzed in when you go. And I used to have to like dress in like a shirt and tie when I went there. But I was telling Micah, like when I worked there, I also had a huge mohawk in college. There's some pictures of that on the internet that people still have. And so I was like it was very strange, and it was a very cool experience, but it was a milestone moment for me of like of affirmation. Before I didn't want to say I fell in the games, but by this point I kind of had to let go of video games because, as I've explained to people, like I got a job offer for IGN when I was 19 and I turned it down to be the editor of IGN GameCube. And I was like, well, that's that. I mean, I made my decision. I didn't really regret it. I was still writing for them and still freelancing and all of that. And I guess it was a big milestone for me was that email I got. I wish I still had it. Like I don't have any of this stuff anymore, but 22 years ago in 2002 from IGN guides being like, you don't want to write strategy guides for us? And I admitted it really later. I was like, I fucking hated IGN, no one really knew why, but everyone hated like IGN and GameSpot. And even at that time, it was like the very GameFAQs message board. Like we're all angry, MIRC and ICQ and all those
facts.
And that's where I began on GameFAQs. And I was like, oh, yeah, definitely. I turned that right around. I was like, yeah, fuck yeah, I'll write for IGN. And I was 17, so they didn't know that, and I had to wait a month and a half to write my first guide. I turned 18 in October of 2002, and I signed at that point, and I actually still have it because we faxed it. and I have it in the contract and all that, because it was a big deal for me, and it was amazing. And Per always used to talk about that. Per Schneider, who was the founder of IGN, still there today as the CEO. He would always say, like, we thought we were going to get in so much trouble with you because I was they approached me before I was 18. I was an intern there totally illegally twice. Like there was in California, and really not supposed to do that kind of shit. And I'm like, can I just kind of come be there? And they're like, yeah, right. Yeah. Like, yeah, like this, that was like literally the way it went. And because IGN went through these phases, like IGN was independent for a while, and then, you know, it was founded in the mid 90s. It was independent, and then Fox bought it in 2005. So this was that pre-Fox period where there were really no rules. None of this shit would have happened under Fox. And in fact, when Fox bought the company, all that stuff stopped. That's why there were no more interns. Because people always ask, like, you started as an intern at IGN. Who else started as an intern? And I'm like, no one. It was like me and David Clayman and Juan Castro. I mean, those were the 3 interns really that came up. And that was all from the PS2 era, basically.
Wow.
So that milestone, I guess, of getting that first email and getting in with them. But a big milestone moment for me was when I was an intern in 2003 for just less than a month. I went for like a few weeks. It was for E3, and then it was for like a bunch of other stuff. And like being at E3 for the first time, I was like, holy shit. Like, and that was when E3 was legitimate.
Yes.
E3 has been legit in a long, long, long time. And like you couldn't get in unless you had like a very specific way to get in. And I was like, this is incredible.
Yes.
And the next year, 2004, was a big E3 for me. And that was a very memorable, I remember that E3 so well. It was like Resident Evil 4, Twilight Princess, like a bunch of stuff. And they trusted me enough to give me business cards, and I would go around to the different kiosks, North Hall, what was it, West Hall, North Hall, and then like Kensha Hall and all that. And back in this day, they still would give you assets on CDs, sometimes USB dongles, but that was still kind of new.
Wow.
And or tape, like for like B-roll, they would give you tapes. And I remember going around and getting them from everyone, like giving my business cards out and getting them from everybody, and then sitting there all night just uploading this shit. And so if you look at a lot of E3 2004 assets on IGN, that's all your boy Colin Moriarty doing the screenshots and all the video and all of that.
And them press kits.
That was an affirming moment. When I got hired, my first day was July 16th, 2007 at IGN as an editor. I'll never forget that date. I mean, that was like that was the moment for me, you know, and I like couldn't believe it. I was like, holy shit.
What about that acceptance letter when it come through?
Well, it's funny, dude. Like, so I got my job offer after I graduated college, and I was going to go, everyone knows this already, I've said this a million times. I was matriculating into Northeastern's grad program. I hadn't even taken my GREs or anything yet. So they were just like, you're in, you have 6 months to fulfill these various obligations. I even had a TA position. And I was living like at my friend Pablo's house for $200, his apartment for $200, literally sleeping on the couch. But he was always gone. He was with his girlfriend. His roommate was always gone. It was basically just my place. It was awesome. It was on the corner. It was on Park in Boston. I can't remember the corner street. It was great. It was right on the Fenway. And like you could hear, if you were watching a Red Sox game, you would hear like the, and then if you were watching on TV, like 2 seconds later, you'd see the hit, you know, which was kind of cool. And there was a guy named Jason Allen who I don't even know if he's around anymore, but he was in a guy at IGN for a while, and he went to Capcom, took a job at Capcom, and he was the IGN Cheats editor. IGN Cheats hasn't been a thing for many, many years, but IGN Cheats was there was IGN Guides, IGN FAQs or Facts, and IGN Cheats, and they were all part of this umbrella run by my friend Chris Carl, and later my friend Mark Ryan, who was at my wedding, and he was the one who hired me. And so you had like everyone wrote, there was 4 of us on that team, and we all wrote guides, but one of us spent mornings on IGN FAQs uploading things, and one of us spent mornings on IGN Cheats uploading new cheats and updating all that stuff. And he had left, and so before they put the job listing up there, he called me and he's like, do you just want this job? And I was like, yeah. And it was literally, I think 20 days later that I moved to San Francisco. I was like, because they were normal. There's like, all right, so you're in Boston, you just graduated college, you need like 3 months, 4 months, like whatever. I'm like, dude, like what is the soonest I can possibly start working there? Yeah. And they were like July 16th. I was like, I'll be there. Nice. And in that 2.5-3 week cycle, I found a place to live in Daly City, which I lived in for just a couple of years. That's the gay house I always talked about, like where everyone was gay except for me in that house. That was them. They were awesome. The office was in Brisbane, which is a very small place south of San Francisco, like a small seaside city or town. It's really cool. And that was an amazing. That was so amazing because I couldn't believe that it came back to me. It was just one of those things where you're like, I said no to this. I'll probably always regret it, but whatever. And then it just fell back into my lap. So I never applied for the job. I never interviewed for the job. And I had to talk to a recruiter as part of like their process. Cause at this point, Fox had owned the company.
Gotcha.
So they were like, and I always joked around that they paid me $40,000 a year. It was 2007. And before they even got the number out of their mouth, I was like, yeah, I'll take it. And then I learned later, like, oh, you could have probably, like, Greg and I started around the same time and he got 45.
Yeah.
Right. Like you could have fucked around with them a little bit, but I was like, oh, and I remember saying to my dad, like, what do you do with this much money? Like, what do you do with $40,000 a year? Meanwhile, I was like living like months later, I had nothing. I was living on like fucking tortillas and refried beans. Shitty beer. But that was a milestone. And then I honestly, my last, like, I mean, there are so many personal milestones that are obvious, getting married and meeting people and all that kind of stuff. But I think my final professional milestone, because I think this is what people would actually care about, is founding Kind of Funny. That was
game changer.
That was the one thing I regret about not being there anymore is that I'm not going to get, and this is a very selfish thing, but it's like, I'm not going to get the personal credit I am owed for starting that and starting a revolution of people doing that.
Yes.
Jim Sterling did do it first on Patreon, but he was at Destructoid, but he's very successful, but we were the first people to really burn it down and be like, we're going to actually leave. I mean, it was a fucking huge deal behind the scenes when we left IGN. It was a big deal and they did everything they could to keep us. And I appreciate that. They basically offered to double my salary, you know?
Wow.
But at that point, it's like, you could have just done that the whole time.
Yeah, true.
And you made me live like this, like with 3 other people, and kind of pissed me off actually, even more.
Yeah.
I wanted to be editor at large. I mean, they offered me that, which is basically like, I'm never showing up again. Like I'm going to go write whatever I want and just do whatever I want and just travel around and go to see studios and stuff like that. It was cool, but we pulled the plug. I was the last one to really agree to leave. And Greg was very instrumental in that. They actually tried to fire me. I think I've talked this. So I don't know if I've told this story publicly. I think I have. So Greg, Tim, and Nick are the other founders, and they were under IGN Video, right? Greg was a host at this point. He wasn't doing editorial anymore. Tim was an editor. Nick was a director. And I was a senior editor and I was in charge of IGN PlayStation. So I was on the IGN editorial side. So we had different bosses. Fran Mirabella was their boss. Steve Butts was my boss.
Oh, well, Fran.
And when I resigned, Steve tried to fire me immediately and was basically like, you can't, like, we're done basically. And Pear was in the office like with us. And he was like, we're not doing that. That's literally what happened. Like, that's literally how it went down. Yeah. I don't know if I ever talked about that before. Like they were basically like, well, we don't need you.
Like a saving face thing.
They didn't want to accept your resignation.
It was basically like I think from Steve's perspective, it was like, you're betraying us.
Okay.
You know, gotcha. We gave you all of this and you're leaving, you know? And I talked about how I had dinner with Pear. I love Pear. I've seen and talked to him. I still talk to him behind the scenes pretty often, actually, via email, but he was basically saying like, you're not like them. This is separate of that, but like, you're a writer, you know? And I was like, no, I can do what this podcasting thing. Like, I don't know how you look at Podcast Beyond and don't know that, you know, but they never monetized it. When we tried to buy Podcast Beyond at that time, that was the first of many times we tried to buy Podcast Beyond from IGN. And, nonetheless, so that I maybe I never told that story publicly. Like we were in an office and so I was basically like, I'm leaving. Greg was in the office with me and it was Steve and Pear and maybe someone else, Tal or someone. And they're like, well, Steve was basically like, well, we don't need you to stay then. Because we were leaving in October, basically giving them a heads up. Like, we're leaving, we're going to get everything in order. We're giving you 3 months notice.
Wow.
You know, because we knew it was a big deal. Greg was their host. Nick was the video director.
Right.
And Tim was a producer. So it's like, okay, like this is a pretty big hit. and we later poached Kevin from them, which they weren't pleased about either, but he didn't leave with us. But we took him as soon as we could.
Mhm.
And that was what happened. So Pear stepped in and was like, we're not doing that. And I think a lot of it was like, we're not doing that to Colin. Like,
Right.
Colin's been with us since 2000. Colin's been with us 12 years. You know, it's like,
Yeah, it's real respect.
but that was a milestone moment because that was the scariest thing I'd ever done. Like I said, leaving Kind of Funny was trivial compared to leaving IGN. Like that was, there's no going back. There's a few examples of people going back, but generally, and actually at Damon's wedding the next year, one of the sales girls was like, you should just come back, you know, like, and I'm like, no, I'm good. Thanks. That time we were like, I'm like, do you have any idea how much money we're making? I'm not coming back, you know?
It's milestone, baby.
So, that was probably obviously Last Stand and all that's a milestone itself, but I can't really reflect on it yet. The founding of Kind of Funny was instrumental in a lot of what has happened in games media. And I take that very seriously because that bums me out, you know, like that I was a big part of that, probably the second most important part of it actually. And, you know, but that is what it is. But that was that was a complete milestone. And dude, when it worked, we were so scared, dude. I was so scared.
Of course, new frontier. Yeah.
I remember we did our last podcast Beyond Live, which was at PSX that year, but we didn't tell anyone. But it was a very somber moment for Greg and I because we were done basically. Yeah. And we actually kept doing the show for a few months after we left, which people forget because we didn't know if we would need the money. Right. They basically paid us it was like $1,000 an episode or whatever just to go and record every week. And I think we did it 10 times. And then we finally, Greg never wanted to do it, but I was afraid that we would need the money, you know? So I was like, we should maybe keep this going. And then when it became huge, we were like, oh, I guess we don't need to do that anymore. But so that was the last notable milestone that I think the audience would care about. I mean, and as you know, professionally, I think that was
Rogan's not up there, sir. Rogan.
Yeah, doing Rogan. Yeah, it's funny, man. So we were at my cousin.
I forgot that you were.
He's on Rogan. Man's on Rogan. Respect his name
twice.
I forgot about
twice.
That. It's funny that I said this on another episode of the show at some point that was the most legitimizing thing I had ever done and probably could ever do to a grander audience. It comes up with people all the time when I meet them or know them or they know me. So an example is this last weekend, Micah and I were in South Carolina for my cousin's wedding, and his cousin's friend, who I knew when he was a kid, his name's Dougie. He was a really nice guy in Long Island. I haven't seen him in many, many years. And he was just coming up. He's like, I didn't know if you remembered me and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, man. And that's like what he brought up. He's like, dude, I couldn't believe when you were on Joe Rogan. And I was like, that was in 2017, but I'm glad that you remember that happened. And it's something that like my old high school friends, people from high school, like all these people talking to me about it, being like, dude, you know, because they just see on there, and I can believe it. It's like the RSS feed. It's like blah blah blah. Colin Moriarty.
Like, what up? Like, we outside. What's up?
And it's like the biggest. But people. So the first one was fun to do, but it was getting invited back. That was very. Because there's a website that tracks everyone, and it's like he doesn't invite most of his guests back ever.
That's a good point.
You know, and I didn't ask. He DM'd me and messaged me to be like, "Do you want to come back and do it again?" The thing that's a bummer though is that when I started really getting away from politics, he was much less interested in me because he doesn't care about video games. Like, if you listen to Joe Rogan, he has like an occasional. I think
he talked about Armor 3 recently, and I was just like, "Oh wow, he talked about video games."
Probably because that's the game. It's probably because that's the game everyone uses to make fake photos.
Yes, and he thought it was real, and he was like, "Bro, this is a game. Look at what video games are doing." He's like, "I hate video games, but goddamn, look at what video games."
He hates them, and so like it's annoying to me because I would be so useful to him because he knows me and can trust me on the show if he was into that stuff, but he's not. Like he had John Carmack on, I think, at some point, but that was more about VR and like technology, and I think maybe Cliffy B did the show, but I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, like that I would probably have been on it more often. Like I remember Dave Rubin, my friend Dave Rubin, who a lot of our audience doesn't like, but that's too bad. He's a good friend of mine. I remember him even telling me like he's like, Bill, you're going to be on Bill Maher before I am or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, I doubt that, but
forgot about that too.
Yeah, that was like, that I was like, that would be fucking crazy. But Bill Maher also doesn't care about video games. And so when I got out of that political lane, because it was so, ugh. One day I will talk about the specific opportunity, because people are like, Colin failed at politics. And I'm like, you have no idea what you're talking about. You know, like
dude,
the things that
the
opportunities I turned down.
Yeah.
Dude, like, I'll get specific one day about a couple of them in particular, like major conservative media outlets that were offering lots and lots of money. And I had a conversation right when I was about to launch the Patreon for Colin's Last Stand in 2017, like the day before. I basically had a conversation with the CEO of one of these major brands that was like, well, like, what do you want? Like, you know, kind of thing. Like, we'll give you this. And it's like, I'm just going to go it alone and see what happens. And that's what I ended up doing. But that's what annoys me the most, is not people can make fun of the content or not like it, but saying I failed, it's like, dude, I'd probably be so far up your ass at this point if I took one of those jobs with the politics stuff that we'll see how much it would have been a failure. But it was not, to the point you were making earlier, Cog, about money and happiness or whatever. I got bought out at Kind of Funny. It was a lot of money. I mean, it was enough for me to not worry about like anywhere in the immediate future, which I was very appreciative of, but I feel like I earned that. And so I turned down the money for the idea to do it myself. And it really kind of panned out the same monetarily anyway in that short time. And I make more now than I would have at those things then, but it's just, I wanted to be happy. You know, I don't know. I see some of these things, like this stuff with people and their money and their flash and it's like,
it's not true.
It's just a great example is like when I got married, I got like everyone knows, 'cause I talked about how excited I was about it. Like I got custom made everything. Right. And it's like, I never do that. And I remember leaving the place with Micah, and Micah will tell you, I was like, I don't know if I should have done that. You know, like after we did that, not that like it was going to hurt us, but it was just like, that was such a waste. It was so frivolous. It was so stupid. And she's like, but you never do it. Like I'm wearing shirts and stuff from like high school and college a lot of times. So I don't know, man. Like the milestones now are going to be, I think, measured in different ways, because I am so much more comfortable than I was the last time I made those milestones, as it were. Like going to IGN and having something, going to Kind of Funny and then leaving and having more than something. And then it's like, I don't know. So now maybe it'll be children, or it'd be, you know, something like that. I don't know. Mike has been reading a book. What is it called?
Oh, it's called The Baby Decision. I don't know how to say the woman's last name. I can't remember what it is, but it's essentially this book of, like, a lot of it is thought exercises. It's from a neutral perspective, so it is not pro or against having children. It's just trying to help you figure out your gut instinct of, you know, picture yourself picking up a baby out of a crib. Does that excite you, or are you like, I don't want to touch it? And it's really just about completely neutral visualization exercises, but just getting your gut feelings out of them. It has been interesting.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't know. We got to do a topic about that one day with the more, like, I guess, a more appropriate group of people. Probably like Dagan.
Not me.
Ben? Something like that would probably be that. That's actually a good group. Dagan and Ben would probably be the right group to like just prod them a little bit, because it is interesting. Like the whole idea of the biological clock, timing, the man having an advantage over the woman. Like I'm 9 years older than Micah, right? And I'm not under any sort of clock, which seems kind of unfair. So you're in this kind of pocket, you know? And like my mom had me when she was 34, but she had Dagan when she was 22. So we have a little bit of time in that regard, but it is interesting approaching it from like a pros and cons kind of situation. It's about how selfish you want to be.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, not to get totally off topic.
Whatever.
In reading this book, because I'm someone who, from the logical side of things, I can't understand why people have children. I am that person who's like, I don't get it. Like, I don't see what you gain from this. And you have to understand, which is what I'm coming around to, that it's an emotional decision, not a logical decision. When you lay out the rationale of having children, no one would do this rationally. It's extremely expensive. It is a lot of work. Like, there is no rational, yeah, we should have kids because it's easy. It's a fuck ton of work and money and everything. And that's only worsened by the fact that, yeah, most households, both parents work. Hardly anyone can afford to be a stay-at-home mom these days. Like, all these things of like, it's only gotten more difficult for parents. But the realization when I look at someone like Dustin and Holly, and I'm just like, I'm trying to understand why you knew you always wanted to be a parent. Because that's when I talk to them, it's like, oh, I always wanted kids. And it's like, I never felt that ever. And I'm not like anti-child. I've just never felt like, oh yeah, I really want to be a mom. That's just not something I've ever felt in my life. So I'm trying to understand it. And I'm trying to move away from the logical side of things, which would just inevitably tell you not to do it, and instead try to understand what it is that people I can't word it any other way to say, what do people get from this? You know, because it is just like, it's a completely emotional choice and not one that's made with logic or reason.
Yeah. We share some similar things on some levels. I mean, you're more extreme to me on this, but I guess that's another topic for another day. But I was going to say, just food for thought is also for a lot of people's legacy as well. And
that's the one thing that
lineage.
Me,
and that's where,
as a person, I just interrupt you real quick. As a person who agrees with most of what you say, because I don't have that emotional connection. But if whatever my partner, or if I decide to get married, says this is what really matters to them, I do worry about my last name dying with me.
Dude, Cog, you and I are the same cloth, bro.
Are we in the same pocket?
Bro, my mom said that to me. I was like, I don't fucking want kids. Are you kidding me? I was like, imagine me raising a kid right now. No, hell no. Like, and she's just like, so you're gonna let the Schroeder name go down with you? I was like, yo, mom,
they hit me with that too. I was like, I didn't even think about it. I was like, yeah. Now I got a little catch because my cousin, my younger cousin, that's my
the opt out clause.
Yeah, I got the opt out. I got the cheat code, so it won't technically. But prior to his birth, it's funny because he shares the same birthday as me. But prior to his existence, it would have died with me. Yeah. So I'm just like, man, I don't know how I feel. I feel kind of sad, but I understand everything you're saying. I don't have that emotional connection. And part of me is like, hey, I'm fine right now. I'm good. I want to live life. I don't want the burden, but I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, totally.
Oh, yeah. Well, and legacy is another one where I get a little funny with, because like, Allie, Colin's sister, said something like, you know, in the future, like, this is your legacy. And she pointed to her child. And it's like, I am okay being forgotten. I literally, if I died tomorrow and no one ever thought of me ever again, it's okay.
What's the saying? There's a saying.
I just don't care. You know, like, I'm just okay with like, no, it's fine. You can literally just forget about me and never think of me ever again. And it's okay. And that's probably some sort of, maybe that's the lead poisoning kicking in, but that part of my brain that needs to be remembered or celebrated in some way just isn't there. And of course, also, I don't get to pass down my own family name. So I'm like, well, that who cares, right? Right. But it is, it's like the legacy part of it isn't even a factor for me, because I'm like, when I die, like Frank said, just throw me in the trash. No, you know, just we throw me down in Barton's Cove. No, and I'll be fine.
Dude, it was. I was trying to look it up to see who said it. It was Conan O'Brien. He said, eventually all our graves go unattended. Yeah, no, that's an amazing.
It's only temporary. Like when I think of, for example, family heirlooms, I have like my great grandma's engagement ring. And in the reality, it's like, even if I passed this on to a child, they don't know who Grandma Ruth is. They don't know anything about her. I don't have a single photo of Grandma Ruth either. And it's just the reality of like, we would have this object in name only of whose it was. But the reality is that Grandma Ruth will quite eventually be forgotten, as I never got to meet her. I have these like stories told of her, but my dad is going to be probably like the last person to remember her in reality, the last person who actually talked to her, versus, yeah, we know who she was, and you look at a family tree and she's on there. It really is. It's like, in terms of a legacy, it's like, well, you're prolonging your remembrance by years, let's say. It's still going to happen. It's still going to happen eventually. Not you guys, though. You guys are internet famous. So, you know.
we have this reference point of view right now for your future generation.
look what mom thought of you all those years ago.
Look at Grandma, Mike.
I think about this, Cog. I think about the legacy thing all the time. I mean, yeah. But I do feel I have a couple outs in just that. Yeah, like the Moriarty name does live on in my family. Good. Not only do my brother's son, but through their like cousins too. So it's like, I don't know. I don't feel quite as pressured in that sense, but there is something interesting about having progenitors. Like that's you. I could totally understand philosophically and emotionally, how a mom looks at a child, like the way my mom is like, I'm like a mama's boy hardcore. I'm 39 years old, like still to this day, you know? And like my mom is like a doting Italian mother with me still and I get it. It's like, well, I'm just this little thing that was, you know, inside her for 9 months, came out of her, and then she had to take care of it. And it's like, I totally get that is a life altering thing. Mm-hmm. And so, but it's just a matter of if I can I manage everything I want to do and live a life that I want to live and all the rest. I don't know. I don't know what it comes down to be honest.
Yes. Sorry for the sidetrack. So Micah, might as well just continue with you with milestones. You know, as far as obviously we share very similar backgrounds and careers, and just curious, you know, for you, you know, what were some that really mean a lot to you? You know, any future milestones? You know, how important is this to you?
Yeah, the real big one is going to college, which is only diminished by joining Colin's family, in which my college education is just meaningless. But that's fine. At the time, it was really important to me. I got my associates. I was the first person in my immediate family to go to college. Like neither of my parents did. And that's not a knock at all. They didn't have to. They, you know, have careers and they've been successful in their lives without doing that. But it was something I really wanted to do. Something I was discouraged from doing when I was younger. So getting that associates and feeling really proud of myself, that was like number one. That was just a huge moment for me. Getting my first IT job at UMass, like within 6 months of graduation, was also huge. That number kept coming up of like, you really want to find employment within those first 6 months. I remember being like, oh, geez, like, because another round of graduates will be coming up soon. And that was enormous, getting the phone call that I got the job at UMass. It was like a round of interviews, like phone interview first, in-person interview. And I was so nervous. And my old boss at that job had told me later, he's like, at your in-person interview, he's like, you looked so scared. And I felt so bad for you. And maybe that helped me get the job because I was just this small, scared woman. But it was of like, it was a whole new world for me, leaving factory work, leaving retail, pursuing IT, which is something I went into strictly for the job security, because I just was like, I just need a job that's not going to go away. It's something that where I won't be poor anymore. And so that's why I chose IT. Sometimes I regret that because I didn't go to school for something I was like passionate about or something I thoroughly enjoyed. But it all kind of worked out in the end because now we're here. But going to college, getting that first real job out of college, getting out of retail. I worked retail for 5 years. It was a nightmare. You know, everybody has their retail horror stories, I feel. And it was a place where I met a lot of great people. I am still friends with some of the people I worked with at those jobs. But God, dealing with customers, man, it's the fucking worst, dealing with customers in person. I don't mean, because my job now being like the merch person here, our customers are so easy and so much kinder versus the like really mean old lady I had to deal with at the department store who wanted to return a pair of muddy shoes that were 6 years old. She had the receipt from 6 years ago and she's like, these shoes wore out. And I'm like, they're 6 years old. There's a hole in them. Yeah, they wore out. She got her money back because that's retail. It's soulless. You get yelled at by some customer, your manager comes over and says, it's okay, give them the money. And then later on, they're like, you should have been nice to that lady. You know, like, why'd you tell her the return period's 30 days? Wow. You know? So that job was soulless. And, you know, retail was just hell. Getting out of that was a huge feeling. I remember because my job at the university was the first job I had where it was a sit-down job. That was itself a milestone of I don't have to stand for my entire shift because going from factory work to retail, there's no sitting down. And I just remember that first day of like, I get to get paid to sit down. Like it really was. I felt like I was living the high life, you know, and
I love that
because I just couldn't fathom it before. Like, wow, I get to sit down for a living, you know, and it was a lot to learn. It was hard work. I enjoyed it in those first couple of years, but that was huge. That transition from like retail to the IT job and meeting some really fantastic people that I'm still friends with now. That was enormous. And I guess pivoting I kind of pivot more to like personal milestones after that point. Because of course, I met Colin just being a guest on the show one day, which was just, it really is just kind of random. And this is all just like my life just being weirdly lucky when it never was before. And I never, ever had such good luck in my life. So, but like getting to work here, fantastic. But the really huge one is like moving here. It was my first time living out of state. And that felt huge because I had just never gone anywhere. And the reality is that I loved living in Massachusetts. I probably would have stayed there till I died type thing because fear aside, I just enjoyed our cold weather and our cold people. It was nice. But moving here was huge. It was me tackling something I was afraid of. It was me facing that I think I could be really happy if I do this thing that's terrifying and having to actually just do it. So moving here in 2021 was enormous. And then getting married. I mean, it's something that it's something that was like a lifelong goal, which is weird to say because it's like your personal life. And it's like, you know, the goal is to find someone that you really like and mesh with. And then like getting married, though, for me was like an essential part of that. Like I didn't want to be with somebody, you know, long term if that wasn't on their mind, too. So getting married was huge. And it was something that was, you know, I got to live out that little bit of like that childhood dream of like, we're going to have the cake and the flowers and all the things. And that was just, I don't know. You don't say like checking it off the list, but when it was over and saying like, I can't believe I'm actually married. And I still feel that way sometimes. We have our little cake toppers, which were little Boston Terriers on top of our fridge. And I look at them sometimes and I'm like, oh, you're married. Like, because in some ways, life is very much the same in a good way. Whenever someone says, how's married life? It's like, it's the same. And I mean that in a good way because nothing catastrophic happened. But it just is like, I don't know. That was the major one. I don't know what's next. Yeah, we do. We talk about maybe the kid thing. I'm not sold on it yet, but I'm open to it. But it is getting married. It was just like something I had spent my whole life hoping for. And then it's here. And so, yeah, I'm
feeling this. Y'all wedding was beautiful. I'm sorry. I'm biased. Continue.
Thank you. No, so yeah, I don't know what's next, but when it comes to acknowledging the milestones, like the other part of your topic you mentioned, that's where I struggle because in terms of me just constantly downplaying my accomplishments in every regard, really. And it's like, oh, well, it's not a big deal that you did that. Oh, it's not a big deal that you did that. To the point of like sometimes almost forgetting things I've done. And so I do want to get better at acknowledging like successes. I was always raised to think that like acknowledging your success meant that you were like a braggart type thing. And that's only true if you're dunking on people. Like I'm learning that it's okay to be proud of yourself. It's okay to be happy with your accomplishments. And it doesn't mean that you're like a selfish prick, right? So I am working on that. And also more of the living in the moment type thing. I'm a worrier at heart. And so almost to the point of, wow, like you were so stressed about planning the wedding. Did you enjoy the planning as much as you could have? And trying to apply that lesson to other things of like, you worry so much about this new merch, you know, thing that we're doing. You're like, you just got to dial it back and everything's going to be fine and trust your instincts and trust that you know what you're doing type deal. So when it comes to acknowledging milestones, I don't always do that. And in the ways that like I'm afraid to like let myself like be celebrated even in the smallest of ways. But I'm trying to get better at it and trying to focus more on it's okay to be happy for yourself and not, you know, it doesn't make you, you know, bad or anything. But yeah, those are the big ones that come to mind. The wedding being like the biggest one probably ever because it was just something that like little kid Micah had dreamed about for a very long time. That's awesome. And so that finally happening was just awesome.
Yeah, I told you too personally. I just felt it was a full circle moment, and it was so cool to see because I remember the episode.
I did too.
I remember listening to audio,
and
I'm like, she's cool as hell. I remember I had to have you on ILP because you really touched me with the Lee story when Colin asked you that question, you know, in reference to The Walking Dead, the character Lee and why it meant to you. You know, for Colin, I love because you're always open-minded. You're willing to have these discussions that some people are afraid to have. So to see that then develop into this, and I'm like, oh, this is amazing. So I got a chance to tell you both of that, which was awesome at the wedding. Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. That was really funny just to see people in the audience. There's one guy that I'll just always remember of. He was listening to the episode with his wife, and she had said they'd be great together. And of course, at the time, that wasn't even a thought to me. It was just like, oh, I get to meet Colin Moriarty for an hour. That's really cool. And to see that people, you know, were like, man, this could work. You know, when I didn't even know that was possible. It's just funny to look back on.
I love it. Dope. Mr. Matty Plays.
Oh boy.
Milestone King. Retro everything. What is important to you? What are the ones that's important to you? And any still milestones you're shooting for?
Well, yeah, definitely shooting for more. Micah, I'm going to be echoing her a lot. I think you and I are very similar, Micah. I definitely come from a background of like, I don't think I do it as much nowadays. I sometimes I like to get a rise out of Cog and like Locke, and I'll be like arrogant to maybe to a fault of the listener where it's like, this guy's such a piece of shit. But like, I do like to like joke flex a lot, but I'm never sincere about it because I think I'm humble to a fault at a certain extent. Like I really don't give myself credit ever. Like it's almost never enough. Yeah, so like I don't have great answers on milestones because when I look at my life and I do have answers, I should say, but I look at my life and my trajectory and like I think of the goals I've set for myself. Like one was when I was doing only Bethesda coverage, right? That was like my come up with Fallout 4 and stuff. So Fallout 4 comes out, DLC comes out, channel's doing well, we're growing, we're at like 200,000 subscribers. I'm like, okay, Bethesda's not going to be always making stuff. And like, there's not going to be another Fallout 4. Like you've got to, you know, get out of this. You've got to like shift gears. You got to change focuses. You got to grow your channel elsewhere. And you don't have that moment. You go like, okay, I now make variety YouTube content. And like, that's it. You just can't flip switches. And like, that's the day it happened. It just gradually happens. And I don't know where I could really stake the flag in the ground and be like, yep, like this day I switched gears and conquered that goal. I think I look at it as a culmination of things. I'd say Last Stand was a massive part of me, like breaking out of what I was known for to go from like, hey, you're Bethesda guy to Xbox, which is far broader, and using that perspective to go even more broad. It's like, I just want to talk about games. Like, I just love games. Like, I love Bethesda games, but I don't want to be just confined to that. Like, I love so many people were nowadays it's well known, but like in our community, I should say, but like whenever I talked about in a Bethesda video, like, yeah, I'm playing Persona. It's so good. Like I mentioned offhand, like, Matty plays Persona. Like, you fucking kidding me? It's my favorite shit. So yeah, like there wasn't like a definitive moment, but I really do look at Last Stand and being a part of that change. I felt, I don't know if it was really that, but I guess I interpreted it as such. Like I felt honored by the trust to be this guy who like came in just doing side quests, and Colin was interested in doing an Xbox show and wanted to have me, like he could have just kept me in my spot and found someone else. You certainly had the connections to have the faith in this kid who just was itching for an opportunity and to kind of reorient, like not Colin's Last Stand anymore. It's Last Stand Media. And it's like Matty at the time, Carrick, Dustin, Chris, Colin, to be a part of that, you know, that was amazing. Like I grew up watching Colin, you know, he's taught me so much. It's like, oh sweet, I get to like be a part of this thing. So that was definitely a milestone for me, because I do think that's a point I can kind of put something in the ground and be like, I'm more than just Bethesda guy, which by the way, I'll never forget those roots, but like that was a moment for me. But really what I look at as my milestones are more like forks in the road moments. When I was in high school, I remember putting up a video. It sounds so dramatic in hindsight, but I'd like put up a video saying like, yeah, I think I'm going to quit. Like it was like a warning shot, like not like, hey, pull me back in, but like, I just going through my life. I was like, the channel's dead. I got nothing really going on. College is coming up. I need a job. I need money. Kind of can't hang here, guys. So like, we'll see how it goes. And that's when the Fallout 4 rumors started to pick up. I think I got like 5,000 views on the video. I was like, oh,
Okay.
oh. And that was a fork in the road moment. It was like, my mom was like, you can get a job or keep this up. She was, my parents were always extremely supportive of my YouTube thing, bless their souls. Cause definitely they didn't have like a kid who's like, oh, he went to this college and he did this extravagant thing. It's like, for a while, it's like, I had nothing to write home about.
Some parents have vision and some don't though.
Yeah. I think my parents valued my happiness a lot.
Kudos to them.
That's why I always say in my videos and stuff, like, I just don't know where I'd be without them. Like they allowed me to find my way. And so I remember like I applied to ShopRite. Everyone was getting hired at ShopRite. I didn't get hired. I never even got a call back. I followed up. I couldn't get hired at ShopRite. There's your fun fact for Matty. And I say that because to me, that's like a fork in the road moment. Like I was applying, I'm trying. I'm like, I don't need this YouTube thing. But everything, like destiny was pushing me down a pathway. I think of another example. I've told this story before, but right before Fallout 76 was coming out, again, I'm stuck in this Bethesda rabbit hole. I'm not really enjoying YouTube as much because we talked about like when Micah was mentioning, the hobby she has and not like monetizing them. For me, I'm like, I'm stuck in modern coverage with one particular type of game. I'm losing my mind. I'm not as passionate about it because I'm only doing this thing. I want to talk about other things. I think I have valuable insight on these other things. I would love to do more, but anytime I do, it fails. Why don't I just go like work in gaming traditionally? Remove the stress of, because I'm just realizing I'm freaking out about viewership and all this shit. And so I remember I was at a 76 media preview event for the game. And afterwards I was talking with Sean Baptiste and Pete Hines. And there was this conversation about, me working at Bethesda, like full time, and how they were interested in having me because, obviously I'm super familiar with their shit. I'm a known face. People, to a degree respect me. So it was like a good match, and I'm passionate about their stuff where it's like, okay, cool. I get like the inside baseball. And when the time came where, there was follow-up opportunities and stuff, I had this moment of I was working on my 76 review and I was like, well, when I pull the trigger on this, that's going to fucking sink this whole job op for me. I was like, but I'd be lying to myself and people, and I'm still doing this.
Moment.
It really was a fork in the road moment. And I was like, well, if they want me, they'll hire me without whether this review is, and that was it. Yep. I didn't hear from him, and that was it. And I get it. I think I was pretty fair in my review compared to others, but I get it. I beat the shit out of 76, but and I don't know if that was the exact reason why, but now we have like through defining Duke and stuff, we've rebuilt the relationship with Bethesda. It's so funny how that's turned out. But yeah, like that was a fork in the road moment. To me, that's not like a milestone that you talk about in the sense of like, yeah, I did this thing and I'm so proud of the accomplishment. But that like every time life told me to go one way, or I shouldn't say it told me to go one way. Like I had this option. I tried to go one way. It forced me down the other path where eventually I was like, I can't fight this anymore. Like clearly there's a reason. I don't know. I'm spiritual in that sense, religious in that sense. Like there's a reason why I've just been pulled into this. Like even when I've resisted it, I was ready to quit. Within reason and not reason, 2 different times, and couldn't get a job anywhere. And it's just like, this is the only thing that's been hanging around, and to see what it's grown into is amazing. So if I were to really plant like, hey, milestones, like Last Stand, big one, starting Defining Duke, that was huge. It's all in the last couple of years. Retro Rebound was massive because that was my first moment of like, I think I have enough of an audience now to be like, hey, come check out this other thing that we're going to do. And it's not like a side project. Like it's going to get as much love and attention as you get here, but it's going to be different. My dream was always like, I want to pull Spider-Man off my shelf, like on PS1 or PS2 and just talk about this game, man. Like there's so many memories baked into these games, and just share that with people, share stories. Cause I think that's what games all about. Like I said, I think the idea I came up with, it was like, I was in Discord. I was like, man, I love talking to my friends about just games we love. We just love talking about that. To be able to kind of do that was amazing. So that was, I think 2021. I think that's the same year we started Defining Duke.
Defining Duke, which is one of my milestones.
Yeah.
I was very humbled to hear from you. And I obviously, not to interrupt your moment now, but I do want to give you your flowers because at that moment, I remember speaking to people. They were like, yeah, who's, Matty gonna get? I'm like, yeah, who they gonna get? That's great. I was not even thinking about myself in any capacity. And I think it was Rand that hit me. It was like, bro, it's going to be you. I'm like, no way. Like, they're going to go for someone, huge viewership or whatever. But, I'm here to support it. And then to see that DM from you and us have that initial conversation, which birthed that, and it was super humbling to me because obviously I have so much respect for you. And then, we come together and we make this thing happen. It was really special. And then obviously Colin put the tweet out, and there's the love from the LSM community was just tremendous. And I remember Colin texted me, he's like, bro, I've never seen anything like that. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I was like, this is humbling. And just to see people like, man, Cog, he deserves it. And Matty, you guys work together great. I love that. That to me is super special. So I wanted to give you your flowers on that for making one of my milestones as well.
I appreciate it. I mean, that was one of my milestones too, because I remember behind the scenes, like we were a little like, hey, this like we got to move quick. Like Carrick's out and we need the show to keep going. And we don't want to rush this, but we also have to make like a really smart choice on someone who's going to stay here and wants to be here and is really interested in this show. And I don't know, I mean, again, kudos to Colin for letting me kind of make that choice and not just taking the reins away from me like he totally could have. But I guess my philosophy has always been like, I started Ham Radio podcast with Lone. That would be like one of my my milestones, like starting that podcast, because Lone had 1,000 subscribers. Noah is one of my best friends who had no platform at all. And like, we made a show out of it and people loved it. And like bringing Dustin on to Ham Radio when he didn't really have a platform outside of editing Last Stand. And he was starting to guest on Sacred and stuff, but I think that was his first real splash into like podcasting to an audience of almost like 20,000 listeners. And, giving Locke a platform on Retro Rebound and being like, hey, I trust you, like do this, like you got this. And bringing Cog in, who had his own platform, but like, let's signal boost this guy. Like, I don't know if those are milestones, but I'm really proud that I tried to take the opportunity to like, when I can share the wealth, and that's in a literal sense, I guess, that we can give people who deserve to be heard like more of a platform. So that's why I say I'm bad with milestones, because as you can tell, I don't have like really any of those. Like Colin's story was perfect, right? Like, or Micah's stories were perfect. Like I have personal milestones, proposing to Lele at Niagara Falls. I remember every frame of that. That was one of the best moments of my life, but also God, did I fuck that up? Like, it's so good. Just talking about how nice I thought the water was to kill time until some dude walked past me because I didn't want to propose with like other people around. Just
I love this story.
Yeah, it's a classic, but like I remember that is tattooed on my brain. I'll never forget that. Not just personally, but it's also just like, that's my best friend, and like I get to be with her forever. Buying a home, like a lot of that stuff's come recently for me. And so I feel that's why I feel like I'm on the upswing, because I feel like a lot of stuff is going my way. I've had my battles of, my adversity, and especially mental health wise, for sure, where I feel some clarity and I'm hoping I can have more milestones. Like I feel like they're kind of ahead of me. Like I think, Retro Rewind growing past 100K subs, like that would be a milestone for me, because I think a lot of people would advise against like movies and TV. Like it's like, well, all right, watch this shit, or releasing the game is like a big one for me. I think about my game every day. Like I'm just like, I dream about that moment. I do. Like I almost wonder about, I think sometimes I'm like, what's life after that? The next game, I imagine, but that's going to be a huge one for me that I definitely will like be able to pin on the calendar, like release day. This was it. Like first interview for that game. This was it. Trailer. That was it. So, cause that game is like the culmination of a lot of my, like the way I've written it and the characters we made is just like a lot of my experience, like baked into these different people in this world. And so, and other writers as well, not just me, but, I'm excited to share that. And so that's kind of like the thing I'm hanging my hat on big time, is like, that's ride or die, success or fail. Like that's going to be a big moment for me that I'll always remember, because I've never done something that big before. But everything else, like I don't know if I have a good answer for. So I apologize. Not the most entertaining listen to your audience.
Great answers. Stop. You gave great answers. You're fine.
Yeah, those are my milestones, if you will.
No doubt. I am satiated. Good stuff.
Oh, excellent. I'm glad to hear. Yeah, that was fun. That was interesting. It's always interesting to hear about the moments in people's lives that matter to them most. Like, because you have your external view of people, but it could be different. And some of them are obvious and some of them aren't, Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And but, I think the last one I forgot from Our Lord's Podcast LLC. that was another one. I was coming together and say, all right, let's do this. Let's do this. We're having fun, but let's try to turn it into something. So yeah, dude, it's all great. I like hearing all.
It's a good one. I just set up an LLC.
Yes, you did. See, there you go.
Yeah, that's a good one.
LLCs.
I got the letter right next to me. Actually, I got to open up. Yeah, so that's
LLC.
right as you
You
said.
gotta
I
get
looked down, I was like, oh shit.
You got to get an EIN.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
then you
EIN
will-
now.
Yeah, your friends
Start
are all
filing
over that,
taxes with it.
Colin.
Oh, damn taxes.
What'd you say, Matty?
I said your friends are all over that now. The guys, the lawyers you connected me to, they've been fucking walking me through everything. I'm so done.
Oh,
with
good.
this
So
stuff.
you were working with them. Yeah, they are
They're
great.
amazing.
I mean,
Yeah.
they're really great.
I really appreciate that because I literally told them all of my emails end with explain this to me like I'm an idiot. I'm so earnest with them. I'm just like I don't know what I'm doing. Like walk me through this like I'm a child.
Yeah, they
please.
get it. They work with me, so
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah. That he I don't know if you're dealing with Oscar specifically, but he's like my good friend Nate's wife. They went to school together and knew each other or whatever, and that's how I met them. And he set me up. He set up CLS, LLC right when I left Kind of Funny, and that's how we became got into a legal relationship with each other. And they'll send you a bottle of wine at the end of every year now. So
that's so funny. He's such a matter of fact guy because he just real quick I'll throw in there that I had a name that I proposed and we went through the trademark process and like it wasn't available, and so I sent another one in, and as it got accepted and everything, he's like, by the way, this is a way better name. Like after it was all done, I was like, damn, bro, why'd you tell me in the first place? Like I guess it's not his place, but I was like, damn, dude.
yeah, he is funny. He's a good guy. I'm glad that that's working out for you.
Yeah.
All right, Micah, let's have you wrap it up, batting cleanup.
So this is going to be an easy topic. All right. I just want to talk about the grill. Okay. Because for me, the grill is where it's not just cooking, it's a hobby. All right. It's turned into my meal prep time is now something that's fun and I enjoy. And I've been planning this out all week. I forgot that what I was supposed to do today was go grocery shopping because I was going to buy meats for the weekend to grill. I'll do that tomorrow. It's all good. But the grill has turned into a big thing for me. And I was glad it was Matty Day because Matty, you've expressed interest in grilling and smoking. And it was something that you were excited about getting your own house for, just to have some more space and be able to do these things.
Yes.
And if you're not a griller, certainly let me know if you have like a favorite uncle, who like throws down at the grill type deal. But I want to just talk about why I love grilling so much. And part of it is just, it's this like fountain of knowledge that I've been able to dip into. I listen to a barbecue podcast every week. All right. I have all these YouTube channels I follow. Like grilling became a bit of an obsession. And it's just one of those things that like, it's more than just cooking. It is one of my hobbies. And nice. I look forward to it all week. I see Publix has a sale on steaks. I'm like, bam, we're going to get steaks. We're going to be grilling tonight. Like I look forward to trying new charcoals. Okay. I'm finally getting down to the bottom. My current favorite charcoal is Jealous Devil XL briquettes. Those are my favorite. But I'm getting down to the bottom of that bag.
That is a deep cut, man.
What's the babe, what's the shitty one that like everyone makes fun of?
You're talking about Royal Oak full of rocks in it?
Yeah. There's like a brand that like everyone dunks on.
Because that's lump charcoal, which is not briquettes, and people always getting rocks in it. And that's just a funny thing that happens. Like some guy got a soda can in his, like it's hysterical.
Wow.
But I'm getting down to the bottom of this bag, and I have in the garage a bag of B&B Oak competition briquettes that I'm really excited to try. This is a highly rated charcoal. I've heard great things about.
This is the sports edition. Oh, it's okay.
Oh my god! I can't tell you how many hours I spent researching charcoal. There's this website, I can't remember what it's called, but if you type in like charcoal reviews on Google, there's this guy who has rated all the different charcoals down to like the percentage of dust that's in the bag, because he'll tell you like it's not worth the money. You get too much dust in this one. Like it's amazing.
Wow.
I was really into that for a while. Now I know what I like. And then there's all these YouTube videos comparing the charcoals in terms of like the flavor they give the food, how long they burn, how hot. This really did just turn into, it's much more than just cooking dinner. It's like a highlight of the week. I try to grill like once or twice a week at least, as we get into the warmer months. And of course, running the smoker. That's a whole other ball game, Yeah. But it really has just turned into this thing that as a kid, I liked grilling with my dad. He'd let me do the easy stuff like turning the hot dogs. It was also cute when I got older.
Terrible at all of this.
Watching him do that like with his like nephews and stuff. I'm like, yeah, now it's their turn to be the kid who turns the hot dogs, right? It's something my dad talk about a lot. We have so much in common when it comes to like grilling. And it's something we text about frequently of like what you're making tonight type deal. So it has just morphed into a big part of my life, which is a funny thing to say because it's just grilling. But then talking to the community about it, sharing recipes with people, talking about, oh, what do you got here? Like, I'm just really into it. And I just am really happy with it. But so Matty, this is something we talked about just a little bit before, but your interest in getting into this. And I'm curious if you've purchased a grill yet, if it's something that's still on your radar to do now that you have a house. Like what's the status over here?
Yeah, so the status is we are revising a purchase for the summer just because, the thing is I want to do it. You talked about it being a hobby. Like cooking it's funny. We were talking about hobbies earlier that are like not monetized. Cooking for me, like I'm not a great cook. I'm very lucky. Laylee is quicker than me in the kitchen. Like it's something about my brain. I just move so fucking slow in the kitchen. I'm like, okay, 1, 2, 3. Just it's bad, man. But I'm trying to get better. The grilling is intimidating for me because in my head I'm like, I don't want to fuck up the propane tank, blow up the whole house. Like this could go south real fast. Like I'm invested in this place. I could set the whole thing on fire in a moment's notice. What if I forget to close the gas? So my head goes to all these. Mike, I'm a worrier too, so you can probably massage those concerns a bit on how you've become an expert at it. But yeah, we're looking at a grill because what we've started to do with, like I mentioned, like really structuring my life is every Sunday is meal prep day. So make 5 meals, 5 for breakfast, 5 for lunch, because lunch is like the toughest part of the day for me. I'm in the middle of my work. I just need something that I can go upstairs and microwave, but like that's not always going to be the healthiest option. So really got that down. And as a meat lover, if you will, grilling's the place to be. So yeah, I want to get into it. You telling me that there are these deep cuts with like even charcoal. Didn't know that. So
I was trying to find the review site, but I couldn't find it.
I don't know if it's a little more alluring or terrifying. Like I don't want to just get like garbage charcoal. I didn't know. I thought it was just
you
get a great value bag or something. I thought that was it.
I mean, there's no really going wrong, right? People still swear by Kingsford, the original, that's still good charcoal. That's still like the taste everyone remembers. It's more so this guy got really into it of the value side of things of like some of these brands are just notorious for rocks in the bag or like literally the last like quarter of the bag being dust and it's unusable. So like this guy got into that, like the deep cut reviews, because it was like, look, man, I'm telling you flat out that this brand's a waste of money. Like you'll never get a full bag of charcoal from them type deal. But like you can't go wrong with your Kingsford original. I like Kingsford Competition better than the original. But what I will say, never match light. You never, no lighter fluid, no match light charcoal. That's the bad stuff. That's what you want to avoid. I mean, you stay away from that.
Okay, so I feel like I'm thinking of a totally different outdoor grill from you, or am I just totally off base here? Like, what does yours look like? Can you send me like a screenshot or a picture? Like,
oh yeah, because I have a Weber Performer Premium. So it's a charcoal grill with the little table on it. I did not get a gas grill, partly because it's not what I grew up with, partly because I'm afraid of also burning to death. So I would much prefer to start my little fire.
Yeah, you want to use like something with like those Rhino cans or something, Matt? Is that what you're thinking of?
That's what I grew up with, and okay. So I think what stopped me with grilling is like we'll be sitting there at the dinner table, and we'll just like look over because like sometimes I guess Micah, you'll know the terminology for this, but you got to like burn off the fat from the grill or something like that at certain times, or at least that's what my dad did or my brother did. And so we'll be sitting there like eating. I'll look over and I'm like, yo, the deck's on fire. And so my dad sprints outside with the fire extinguisher, shuts the whole thing down. I'm like, that's too stressful for me. I just want to eat, man. So
it doesn't have to be like that.
Yeah, this is a whole new world for me. This is a great looking grill that doesn't look like it's going to endanger my life.
Yeah.
Well, that, and I mean, you can have a propane grill and be totally safe. What your pops is doing with like burning off, like the previous, crumbs and all that stuff. Yeah. That's one method. You can also get a little brush and brush off the grates, and then you don't have to set it on high to like torch everything that's in it, right? Like, it's more so of like, yeah, if you got to take an extra couple minutes. I'm meticulous about cleaning the grill, but it's because I want to prevent the flare-ups. I want to prevent like the grates from rusting type deal.
Yeah.
But there's pros and cons to both. A lot of people like propane because it's instant. Like you preheat the grill for 5 minutes and it's ready to cook. using a charcoal grill is more like preheating your oven. It's going to take like 20, 25 minutes to preheat the coals. But that's where I say, like, when people think it's like not practical to have a charcoal grill, I'm like, well, if I was going to put this chicken in the oven, I'd have to wait 15 minutes for it to preheat. So it's like, you got to think about it like that. You're preheating the oven, you're preheating the grill. But no, like, grilling is intimidating. I was scared to get into it because it was the moment of like, shit, man, I'm an adult. I'm being trusted to light a fire. Okay. Like, I'm not a kid. Dad's not here. Dad is not here. There is no one here to help me should something go wrong. Like, I know, like, Colin would be here. I'd probably start screaming, you know, but it's like, I'm on my own for this. Okay. And that was very intimidating of like, I'm entrusted to start a fire. Like, Smokey the Bear is going to be on my ass right now if I mess this up. But once you get comfortable with it, especially watching all the videos on YouTube and be like, all right, this is easy. You know, there's so many channels that I got into and I watch all their shit now. And those are like my weekly shows now. The podcast, especially, it's How to Barbecue Right by Malcolm Reed and his wife. It's hysterical anyways, but just fantastic grilling and smoking advice. But I mean, I just look forward to it. I see a new recipe and I'm like, oh, we tried the butter burgers last week. That was my favorite. I mean, so we've just been having fun with it. But that's the thing, Matty, it is intimidating. Like, it definitely was. Yeah. But once you get comfortable with it, it is just like a lot of fun.
Do you smoke cheese in the Moriarty household? My dad did it once and it was amazing.
I haven't tried it yet, partly because there are so many steps to it in that, like, you gotta smoke the cheese at like a low temp, almost like you're cold smoking it, because obviously you don't want it to melt. And then you need to like vacuum seal it. It's got to sit in your fridge at least 2 weeks. And then I think you need to open the package and let it sit a few more days. Yeah. I am an instant gratification person. So if I smoke something, I want to eat it.
Yeah.
But it's something that's on my list to try. What I actually want to do the next time we have a party, I want to do a smoked cream cheese. That's a very popular like appetizer. You like score, you know, cream cheese with a knife, sprinkle on a barbecue rub, maybe like, you know, hot pepper jelly or something. And then you just put it on the smoker. And that's when I see a lot, you know, served with crackers. I don't actually like cream cheese, so it would just be for the family. I wouldn't even eat it, but it's something I want to try because I often see when it comes to party foods, I don't like most of them, but I enjoy cooking for other people. So it's on my list of things to do, but it's not even a food I actually want to eat. But no, smoking cheese, I tried some really great smoked cheese at Publix the other day. And that did make me think I could do this. I need to plan it out.
See, I aspire to be that good. I'm not good enough at cooking or grilling or any sort of making of food to be like, I'm going to make something for someone else, even though I'm not going to make it. Like, Layla helped me out and be like, yeah, I'll make you dinner. It'll take me 5 minutes. I'm like, what the fuck do you mean it'll take you 5 minutes? I'm in there for like half an hour. Like, if I'm making something, I got to be ready. I got to eat it too. Like, how do you do that? So that's the thing I'm struggling with is my timeliness. I've always been teased just Mr. Low and Slow my whole life. Like, just, you know, going at a little bit too lax of a pace. So hearing you say that, inspiring for sure.
Oh, I mean, low and slow, brother. That's the way of the barbecue. If you go on like smoking on like a Saturday or something, my favorite thing to put on the smoker is beef short ribs. It takes those only take like 4 hours start to finish. So that's a very short time on the smoker, but like, that's one of those things that you start it like in the afternoon, takes a couple hours. You can make your side dishes while it's on there and you just don't even have to worry about it type deal.
I see why men do grilling now. This is why the stereotype exists. That sounds so my speed. Like, oh, I could spread this out all day and it makes sense. Great.
Exactly. Like, you really do. It's like the family is like, when's dinner going to be ready? It's like 3 hours. All right. You gotta make sure you start it on time. But it is, there's something, I am someone because of my anxiety who's often very go, go, go. And in a very Zen way, the grill slows me down. Like, you gotta like, look, this is going to take a half hour, walk away from it. This is going to take, 3 hours, walk away from it. It has taught me in some small ways, like patience. I named the grill Weber-san, so he is like my sensei in some capacity. And then the smoker is Weber Kuhn, because that's his son. So generations here.
Love it.
But Colin, now you've manned the grill at a couple of our parties before, But aside from your personal experience, do you have any family grill stories, or anything? What comes to mind for you when I say the grill?
Yeah, my dad had in very much his fashion, had like the same grill for like 30 years, and he just refused to ever buy a new grill, even though we probably could have used a new one, but we made do with it nonetheless. I like grilling. I feel like it's more trouble than it's worth usually. I mean, that's been my experience. What I think though, my experience honestly has been framed through San Francisco. And the reason I say that is because San Francisco is very windy. And it's really hard to get. I lived in the Sunset too, which is right on the beach. And that's like the worst part of San Francisco you really want to live in as far as the climate is concerned. That's why it's cheaper to live there, is because people don't want to live in the fog and the fucking mist all day and the wind. And they want to live beyond the other side of the hills where you can get a little bit of a barrier from that. And so I would be starting to, try, and I had a little grill that sits really low to the ground, get like the Kingsford charcoal and lighter fluid and like do all sorts of things and like just trying to get this thing going. And like, it was so difficult to use. And I think a lot of that was just to the point where we just abandoned it a couple of times, but like, I don't know what you want me to do with this, but we can't use this right now because it's like a fucking 40-mile-per-hour winds outside. So yeah, so I think a lot of it is through that, but I do love the taste of the grill. Like, not to say that this is the same flame broil. It's like different. Obviously, we went to Burger King when we came back from South Carolina.
Hell yeah, we did.
And I haven't had Burger King in years. I like Burger King a lot, but as I've often lamented many, many, many times, it's difficult to find a good Burger King. And I wouldn't say that this is a good Burger King, but it was a fair Burger King. And their burgers do taste so distinct because of the flame broil and like the way it's cooked. And grilled burgers have a very distinct flavor in the same fashion, where it's worth pursuing it if you can do it. Like when I went to Northeastern, the dining halls were dope and they had grill top burgers, like, and all those things being made at all times. And I used to eat them all the time, not only because I love cheeseburgers, but it's like so much different than broiling one or whatever, cooking it in a fryer. I mean, that's all, not a fryer, in a frying pan. It's all totally fine, and I like those too, but there is something special about the grill and then all the flavors you can garner off of it and stuff like that. I just never really considered it worth the effort when you can just do a lot of this other stuff different. It's like smoking food. It's like, I'm never doing that. That's just too much, but I'm grateful that my wife does it. She bakes and she does.
As a kid, what I loved was Drake and Josh. They had this episode of the Gary Coleman Grill. That shit got me so hyped to grill as a kid, because it was just this mini grill that was selling out. I was like, that's a great idea. I was like, that's a great idea. I want one. Never got it.
But yeah, so for me, I like eating food off the grill. Obviously, it's not but the thing is that I do think some food on the grill is overrated. Like, I'm not crazy about chicken on the grill. I think you can make it good chicken on the grill. I think it's unnecessarily risky. It's probably going to get dry, much safer to cook it in other environments. Steak, obviously sublime on the grill, because you have that fluctuation where you're kind of seeking a certain rareness anyway and all of that. So I think it's just a matter of the food. I love shish kebabs, by the way. That's another dominant food that I probably never make or never even think about. But when they're available at like a grill, like my sister will have them every once in a while in her barbecues. And by the way, you can't use that term in the South because, and that's something I've learned, is like, where I come from, a barbecue is like people grilling burgers and hot dogs. That's what a barbecue is. That's like grilling out down here. That's what they would call that. Barbecuing is like a much more serious affair. And when you say when you're inviting someone to a barbecue, that's not what they're expecting. And you have to be very careful about your nomenclature down here. But that's like well beyond anything I ever, we don't do that on Long Island. Like, no offense. We don't do, not on Long Island. We don't do any barbecuing. Barbecue. You don't need to do that. It's just all Italian people and Jews. Like, what are we going to do? What do you think's going to happen here? So
put some latkes on the grill.
Yeah, exactly. Some smoked salmon for the bagels. But so yeah, that was always barbecuing to me, going like, oh, they're having a barbecue tonight. That's what you would think. Burgers, hot dogs, maybe chicken. I mean, that's about as far as you would get, was like chicken with some barbecue sauce on it or some shit like that. And I like that stuff. But again, it seems unnecessarily toiling for an outcome that you can get probably 50% easier by just staying in the kitchen. So that's the reason why, and 100% easier if you're in California, I mean, at least where I was. So I do want to admit that my grilling experience was from living amongst all that weather and just not making it work. And I was reading things like, putting them in a pyramid. I remember all the things you're trying, like you'd have to do, like
got to get a chimney. It's the only way.
Yeah, I don't know, dude. Like we literally bought it at Home Depot for like, $20 or so, whatever, and just tried to get this thing going to no avail. So that's all I had to say about grilling. Not an important part of my my culinary upbringing, although I have enjoyed having more. Not last night, but 2 nights ago or 3 nights ago, we had steak that you grilled. That was awesome. Yes. You made chimichurri sauce, which was awesome.
Ooh, nice.
Can't complain about that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice.
Now, and that is part of it, is like how you grew up with it. Like my dad grills all year anyways. All right. Everyone knows how cold it gets in Mass. So like my dad's out there grilling year round. I haven't done that yet. Like the coldest I grilled was like Valentine's Day, was pretty chilly, and I wanted to do a steak dinner. But otherwise, I'm waiting for it to warm up. And that's why now I'm like really getting into it. But it is how you grew up with it is definitely going to influence how much you enjoy this as an adult, or how much importance you place on it. Like when I'm going online, I'm researching different types of wood to get the different flavors I want on the smoker. And it's just like, it's this whole treasure trove of information. There's so much out there to test out and to try. And I'm just having like a ball with it. But it is a very important part of me being a kid and like being out at the grill with my dad and everything. But Cog, I haven't heard from you yet. What does it bring up for you when I say the grill?
Yeah, I've been listening to you guys. And I'm like, oh, wow, my experience is so much different. First of all, I know why I'm single. I have come to accept my deficiencies, what I can and cannot do. And cooking and grilling is definitely not one of them. The two things that used to kind of upset my family was that, this is my grandfather, because he did a little bit of that. He did a little bit, but it was just like anything around the house, terrible. He would just be so frustrated. He'd be like, what do you mean you can't do that? Like, why just mess it up, right? So
you don't have any home training?
Yeah, like I was bad. Like when it comes to anything like building and house and cooking and grill, like anything house related, I was terrible. But I remember when the shift changed, when things got computerized and things got digital, and now the thermostat and the boiler is, now I could teach you, right? But back to your question with the grilling stuff. Yeah, no, there's not much of it. Obviously, I lived in the South Bronx, and pretty urban for the most part. I mean, then we kind of got to a private house at one point. But the thing is, what I will say though, I love the grill food. And like when I get invited, see, one thing in the Black community, you get invited to the cookout. Oh, it's amazing. It's a thing. So it was a communal thing. And what I liked was the flavor, the specific taste of like what Colin was saying, because grilling in urban areas is really not true barbecuing. It's hot dogs, it's hamburgers. Yeah, you make, and yeah, some people get the ribs going. Mm-hmm. And I love to come for the spread. And we call it the plate. You get the plate and you move around. You're going down systematically.
Potato salad?
The potato salad, the mac and cheese. Yeah. Breaded, Matty. I know, Matty. I
was going to say a word, but you know Matty, what? You know what?
You will not be invited to the Black community cookout if you do not have at least
my tongue.
You got to try to bread it sometimes. You know what I'm saying? So yeah.
That's me showing up doing that type of
like, don't bring that boy back. No more. Please, God, don't bring him back. So it's like that, and the potato salad, and it's just and then you just compound this amazing plate. And what I liked is the families that did that, they were like Micah. They worked so hard, they were preparing, and they're so proud to see you enjoying that meal. And that's what it was. Like, I just love that aspect of it. So yeah, I mean, for me personally, if I ever decided, when it's time for more for house building and stuff like that, I just can't see myself, because you're scaring the hell out of me, Mike. When you talk about the propane and the this and that, and I'm just like, can we just go do something in the house? Seriously. It's just too much. That's what me and Colin kind of like. It's just so much work. for this cool, amazing thing, but it's kind of niche to me. So that's just where I'm at with it. But salute to you and your I love how passionate you are. I love how the charcoal is. You got it down to a side. I love the barbecue podcast. And I will say though, I do love barbecue though. Like I do, it is a distinct thing, especially sauces. I'm a huge sauce guy. So yeah, that all that stuff resonates with me. So that's awesome.
Micah, did I hear you mention earlier Bubba Burgers?
Oh, we have made those. I didn't actually mention that, but we have gotten those for cookouts because first cookout we did for the family, very ambitious. I'm going to buy 6 pounds of hamburger. I'm going to make all the patties by hand. Yeah. It was not worth it. All right. It was not worth it to when you're trying to cook for this many people. Next cookout, definitely bought the frozen burgers. I like the Bubba Angus burgers. I do think they're worth it.
There's those at Mets games, I think. I've had those. Yeah, I think Bubba is a big brand from my understanding.
They're worth it. They're worth it for a cookout, especially if the burgers aren't the main attraction. Because this last cookout we did, we had burgers, we had like other food as well. So it was like the burgers were more for the like, if the kids don't want to eat the the pork ribs that we did, like here, have a hamburger, okay? But they weren't the star attraction. If they're the star of the show, I'm probably gonna patty them out, all right? But it's one of those things that no, like I got no shame with Bubba Burgers. Those are perfectly acceptable.
Okay, interesting. All right, so if I were to host, let's say I was having a get together, I need is it almost? So it's a necessity, but it's not like the big poppin' burger. Like it's better and it's more of a compliment if I've made this with like ground beef by hand. Am I understanding that right?
Oh, I mean, yeah, it is more work. Yeah. If I like my dad, for instance, like if he's having a cookout, he's usually bringing out the big dog, like KM hot dogs. Okay. If you're in the Northeast, you know about KM hot dogs. He likes when they have the Bruins players on the box. And then he will often do like his own patties, but also the store, usually you go to a supermarket and they have fresh ground beef patties as well. They usually just cost a little more per pound. But there are ways to avoid all the extra work. It takes a long time to make like 30 patties. All right. That's not something you just do in 5 minutes. But you have a choice of, frozen burgers. Like they're perfectly respectable. There's a method to doing them right, you know? Yeah. Or you go to the grocery store and they already have the preformed patties. Perfectly good. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
perfectly good.
Yeah, you almost scared the life out of me because I love like Bubba Burgers. Like they're wide, they take up a lot of the bun. They're juicy, like they're so good. And I thought you were about to flip my whole world upside down and be like, no, the BBQ community don't like those, so they're not accepted.
No. I mean, it's about people getting into it at the end of the day. Like I would just be thrilled to see every one of you behind a grill, wearing a little apron. I gotta say though, okay, here's where being like a woman into grilling gives you a problem. I wanted an apron that said, I'd rather be grilling. I thought it'd be funny. So I go on Etsy. All right. And all that came up were these like aprons that said like, put my meat in your mouth and I rub my meat, all these. And I was just like, I just wanted a little apron that said, I'd rather be
if you
grilling.
were walking around with an apron saying that. I'm not going to lie.
I mean, it's all I can find. So I might end up having to get one of those because it's all I can find when I type in like grilling aprons. I really just thought, someone will have something that says like, I would rather be at the grill. I wanted something like that. And all that came up were these heinous sayings. I mean, as if I have any right to complain with the things I've said on this show, but it's not what I wanted. I guess I need to start that myself. Maybe that's a new business.
It's like when we went to the Bruins game and the guy outside, there was a guy outside, like a vendor, they're always selling like the third party shirts and they play in the TD Garden, like the Bruins. So that he was selling shirts that said Titty Garden on them. Like, and he's like, Titty Garden shirts.
Here, Mike.
And I was like, let's get one. And we and she didn't want one. I was like, that's so funny to me. But then she kind of regretted it later.
I did. I kind of did want it, but it's like, where do I wear this? Like, where am I gonna wear this? Like, it says Titty Garden on it. Oh, Maddie found an apron that said I'd rather be grilling.
Redbubble is always clutch. Redbubble is always clutch.
Yeah. No, I didn't even think of that. My first thought was Etsy. Yeah. Oh man. All right. Well, I'm gonna have to get that. The other joke though, I don't wear my wedding ring when I'm out at the grill because I don't want to get dirty. It's charcoal. But the joke is that I'm not married when I'm at the grill. I'm a single woman when I'm out there. You gotta be. You can't be tied down when you're at the grill.
There's one that says, I enjoy romantic walks through the meat department.
Can I turn on your grill? My spirit animal is on the grill. That's fucked up, man.
I love that. It's funny that you found the Etsy stuff perverted too, because I was thinking about that actually when I was looking for, we do our funny ornament in my family every year. We do an insane ornament exchange. So it's just whatever you can find. So one of them I had was Kim Jong-un on a missile or whatever, that kind of shit. But you go to Etsy and you look for just funny Christmas ornament or whatever, and half of them are Mrs. Claus with huge tits and a fucking set, and there's just a set of balls or whatever. I'm serious. It's what is going on? Why? A moose with a huge dick or something like that. It's what is going on here? I'm just looking for funny ornaments, not X-rated ornaments. Etsy.
It's the Wild West on Etsy.
Yeah,
you can find anything.
I don't know if Redbubble's much better. When I typed in aprons just to see if they were selling them here, it was just it said David's dick, and it was just a penis on a fucking apron. I'm like, dude,
jeez,
who authentically is gonna buy this and just wear a dick on it? It's just all cooking meat, man. Come on. I don't know.
That's the thing.
Out loud. Who knows?
Would I have bought the funny apron if we lived in a secluded woodsy area? Absolutely. But my neighbor can see me when I'm at the grill.
There are children
I don't
here.
I don't need him seeing that. He's out there with his kid. The kids on the trampoline next door. They'll see. I can't be seen in that. There's just a line that I cannot cross. When it comes to the aprons being inappropriate.
All right. Too good. Are you satisfied? Are you satiated?
No, this was fun. And I look forward to updates from you, Matty. We're going to get you into this. And there's so many options. You look at pellet grills. Those are the ones that are electronically controlled. There's a plethora of options. You need a shop vac for that, though. You're going to set it on fire otherwise. But there's so many options, Matty. That the world is your oyster now.
I will be hitting your line about this for sure, because this is the summer of investment, right? We're looking at the home gym. We want to get fences for the yard. We're looking at the grill. I'm like, okay, what's the priority right now? We need to get a quote for the fencing, but we're looking to invest now in the property that we own. So
yeah, fencing's annoying, but I got. Yeah. You don't live. Do you have an HOA or no? In your
no.
Oh, okay. We have an HOA, which I actually don't mind. I actually think it's totally fine. It's really not that big of a deal, but I built my fence, and then years later, a couple years later, they were like, "Oh, you built a fence. You didn't ask permission to build a fence." What the fuck?
Jeez.
Get out of here. Just collect the garbage and get out of here and tend to the golf course or whatever the fuck it is you do. All right. Let's go around the horn and say goodbye to everyone. Cog, good to see you, my friend. I love the Dreamcast shirt. I really did have such fond memories of that console. It was very short-lived. PJ, who imported Dreamcast from Japan.
Yes.
And so we would play it that spring, summer of 99 before it came out, that famous 99 release date. And I was there day one. I was all over NBA 2K on fucking Sega Net.
Yes.
And I do. It was so sad. I remember, it's funny, man. I remember how weird it was to buy Dreamcast games towards the end, because it seemed like no one gave a fuck. When you were... People were almost surprised when you would go and be like, "Oh, I want the." I remember one of the last games I bought was Sega Smash Pack, which was a bunch of old Genesis and Master System games. And I remember them being like, "What is that?" Be like, "It's just you have it. Just go fucking get it." So yeah, shout out to the Dreamcast and
to the Dreamcast. Salute.
Yeah, wonderful console.
Yeah,
but yeah, thank you for joining us. Any closing comments otherwise?
Always an amazing Stelly. This we hit all ranges with this one. So for sure, definitely one of my favorites as usual. And good stuff. Good to see everybody.
Yeah, good to see you too. Thanks for taking the time, Micah. I'll see you shortly. We're going to dinner tonight, but we have some time to kill. We should bring the dogs out probably and go for a walk or something. But we're gonna go to the Boathouse. We haven't been there in a while. I like the Boathouse, Sunday Park. Good restaurant for a little bit of seafood, not for me, but some terrestrial foods as well. For me. So I'll see you right after we go away. Goodbye.
Goodbye. And I realized I didn't explain what butter burgers were. You just putting a big pat of butter on the burger while it grills.
It's really good, dude.
I heard Bubba.
It is really good.
Got it.
Oh, that's where it was.
That's what I heard. Yeah. You're like, I didn't say it. I'm like, I heard someone say burger. I was like, what?
Yeah. No, but yeah, butter burger. No, that's funny. That is what it was. Yeah. And then there's the other one we're going to try with the mayonnaise, right?
Yes, we have not tried this yet, but also from Malcolm Reed is you take a tablespoon of mayonnaise per pound of ground beef and you mix that in before you make your patties. And that's also supposed to add a nice richness. Because the thing about hamburger meat, it's not something that you should be eating rare like a steak. You just shouldn't. really, but to help keep that moisture in, either add the butter or add some mayonnaise. So we tried the butter first. I really liked that. We're going to try the mayonnaise next.
Do some steak tartare.
Oh, God.
The raw egg. You'd love that. Matty?
No.
Goodbye to you, my friend. Thank you for taking the time to join us today.
Of course.
Hope you have a good weekend.
Yeah, thank you. I hope you guys all have a good weekend as well. I am looking forward to watching the Rangers play in a couple of hours.
Yeah.
Hoping that by weekend's end, we'll be looking at a team moving on to the semis. But otherwise, I always feel I walk out of these shows much wiser than I actually am. I wonder if the audience feels the same. I feel like I learn a lot every time I'm on Constellation.
Nice.
And I wonder if they feel the same. It'd be interesting to know. But nonetheless, thank you for having me. It was a great time.
Yeah, you're welcome. My stepdad is a huge Rangers fan. When we were talking, and I was watching game 1 when we got back from South Carolina, and your goon scored a goal. I can't remember his name.
Oh, Matt Rempe.
Yeah, Rempe. And I remember I messaged him. I'm like, you got your goon scored. You're gonna be just fine.
Yeah.
Because he was worried about the series. I'm like, the Capitals. Come on, man. You'll be fine.
We'll be fine with this. I think the Canes will be our biggest problem. Assuming I think they will pass the Islanders, but the problem
Game 2
is
was a backbreaker, dude. I'll tell you.
Yeah, absolutely. But the thing is Cog watched me last year. I entered the finding Duke after the Rangers blew a 2-0 lead to the rookie ass Devils, who suck so bad they couldn't even make it this year. I hate the Devils, first of all.
Yeah.
And so blowing a lead to the Devils was like miserable. And watching a team as talented as the Rangers do that, I was like, dude, they're never doing anything. Now this year, they're the best team in the league. They look amazing in the playoffs. Everyone's contributing. I'm going, is this it?
Yeah, I was. That's what I was saying. When we played, the Islanders were on like an 8-1-1 streak at the end of the year, and the only game they lost was that Rangers game towards the end of the year. And I was watching it, and I'm like, this team's really fucking good. Incredibly fast, and they just pinch. Good goaltending. Yeah. Aggressive hockey is the way to beat the Islanders, and the Islanders blow leads like it's not even funny, dude. It's like, it's got to be an historic thing. I was telling Micah, there's been multiple like 3-0, 4-0, 3-1, 4-1 games where they've lost them, incling game 2 where they were up 3-0 with 10 minutes left.
It's never been more of a secure win, and they lost.
There's no, because I was like, we need that win. If we get that win, we're right in it. But I'm like, now it's like game 3 was a must win game, and I'm like, now it's just totally over.
Yeah.
And it reminds me a little bit. I mean, portends right for you. The last time the Islanders were swept in the playoffs was by the Rangers in 1994. I was 10 years old. I remember it very well. And the Rangers won the Stanley Cup that year.
Messier year. Yeah. Messier year.
And they went through the Islanders first, and the Islanders got fucking killed in that series. I remember it so well. They were horrible. The one thing I am doing though this year is vicariously living through Micah, because she's a Bruins fan. So we're watching the Bruins Maple Leaf series, and I fucking hate the Maple Leafs with a passion because of John Tavares and the 2002 famous Islanders Maple Leafs playoff series in 2002. I was actually at that Sean Bates penalty shot game, which was like a famous game. I think it was game 4 or something like that, where he scored on a penalty shot and won. I like watching the video on ESPN, like on YouTube, because I'm in there. I'm there somewhere. Saw the rally towel back there. Awesome. And so I hate the fucking Maple Leafs. And I just want John Tavares to do nothing but run into brick walls in the first round every year. And that's been happening pretty much. He got to the second round one year, but otherwise just like after he left, the Islanders made the conference finals twice. So that felt pretty good for me. So I was like, let's keep this guy as far away from any sort of semifinal, conference final appearance as long as humanly possible. Bruins are up 2-1. They don't play till tomorrow though, I don't think, right? So
yeah.
So we're safe on that front, and the draft.
Yeah, I was about to say no NFL draft. That's what I'm.
Oh, bro, no, I don't want to talk about. Bro, I'm a Falcons fan, like, dude.
Oh yeah, what do you think of that? That's so interesting.
It's. I love Kirk Cousins, so you would have never met anyone happier than me when they signed him, bro. I love Kirk. So when they signed him, I was like, because I see all these videos. He's so hype in the locker room. I love him in the playoffs. Yeah, he's just my energy. I'm like, this guy's fucking awesome. So they signed him. Everyone's like, oh, I don't know, he's too old. I'm like, get out of here with that. Like, this dude is the man. Like, so I was hyped with him. Our offense is sick, so I'm not concerned about that. But bro, their drafting is so, it's always been, they never, you know what it is? You know that dude, I'm sorry, I'll drag this out just a little bit longer.
Go ahead.
You know that dude that everyone knows in their life who just like, they do things to stand out. Like, they don't really mean it, but they say shit. They're talking all stupid because they know it's going to bring them a little attention. That's the Falcons drafting. They just go off the board every time. It's like, you're not unique. You're not special.
you're not big brain in this. Like, dude, you're building a franchise and you just signed a QB for 4 years to like 108, however much money it was. And you drafted one immediately after to take his spot. And I don't know. My only theory, and Colin, you'll relate to this. I think they saw what happened to Aaron Rodgers and just got the shit scared out of him. Like, man, we just signed an older QB and his Achilles isn't right. Imagine that happens to us. We're out of it. So you draft this QB, but everyone wanted us to get Dallas Turner because like we want better defense.
Yeah, no like defensive players, I think, taken to like the 14th pick or something.
Yeah.
So like that's amazing. 17. If you were picking high in the draft and really needed a defensive player, like if you're picking in the middle, you got a potential 1, 2, or 3 pick basically in the 15th pick because people were rushing on quarterbacks. Micah's very unfazed by the Drake May drafting in the Patriots, which I find interesting because I was like, dude, aren't you excited? It's a whole new era. Like you've never seen anything like this. You have a new coach and a new quarterback at the same time. This is very conventional for other teams, but not for you. I would expect you to be much more excited. I know that you don't know if he's going to be good or not, but that's the luck of the draw. It's what's exciting is that you have another shot at having a potential, all-pro quarterback. So
no, we'll find out. Like I'm excited at the new season starting, and yeah, it's something different. I'm excited that we made changes, but no, I'm not going to be I'm not going to be really excited until it's proven, right? Like, is the new coach going to be great? I don't know. Is this new quarterback going to be great? I don't know. I just, you know me, Colin. I don't like to get my hopes up. I don't like to be disappointed. So I'm just telling myself now that he probably sucks, and we're just going to be bad for the next 10 years, anyways. But I'd like to be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I just I get it. And I've had multiple of those disappointments from Mark Sanchez, although Mark Sanchez in hindsight was probably the most successful quarterback in my entire life for the Jets. But we've had, the Sam Darnolds and obviously Zach Wilson. Shoot Zach Wilson into the sun for all I care. I fucking hate that dude. He's the worst. Like when people are like, oh, what's going to happen with him is going to happen with Geno Smith. And I'm like, first of all, it took Geno Smith like 12 years to get back, which is totally fine. And I rooted for him. I think he's great. It's great that he found success, but I'm like, there's no risk of that. I can promise you there's no risk of that happening with Zach Wilson. So we don't have to even worry about that or put that out into the wild. But I'm happy with I thought it was kind of puzzling the Jets trading back with the Vikings, right? And the Vikings just jumping up one spot, which was indicating to me that the Jets either had another trade offer on the table or there was some vibe that they were going to take a quarterback, because I didn't really understand that move from the other perspective. We got an extra 4th round pick and an extra 5th round pick out of that. I would have preferred a 2nd round pick out of that, but I do understand that that's probably a little expensive to move up one. We don't have a 2nd round pick because of the Aaron Rodgers trade. It would have been a 1st round pick if he actually played. Right. So we are lucky in that regard, but we picked up a tackle and I'm totally fine with that. Offensive line is vital. I don't know. I hate glamorous picks like that, but they are established picks. Like you need to make picks like that, You
have to. You absolutely have to.
And we've had real offensive line trouble. So, and we want to keep Aaron Rodgers upright. We probably have him for 2 years, I would assume 2 more years. So I would think that we would want to go all in. And I know people were really interested in us going for that tight end, Brock Bowers, but I'm like, we have a tight end. Tyler Conklin's not a bad tight end. And we don't need this. We need offensive line depth so we can really pinch this year and go forward. So I'm excited. We have Tyrod Taylor as the backup now, which is
solid backup.
Yeah, some people are arguing he's maybe the best backup in the league, like the best, like the 33rd quarterback. And I'm like, maybe. I don't give a shit as long as he's not whatever we've been like, whatever it is. Trevor Siemian. I mean, really?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm excited. Yeah. So draft night tonight, I'm just gonna skip the 2nd round because the Jets aren't even in it. But I'll tune in the 3rd round, see what happens, and then we'll have 4, 5, 6, and 7, which I like. Just kind of keep, like that famous ESPN noise.
Love that. Oh yeah,
you just keep that on in the background and hear that every fucking 3 seconds.
Look at the little ticket tape.
Yeah, right. And it goes quicker and quicker. Like you have like 5 minutes and 3 minutes, towards the end, and now it takes a little. Do we need 10 minutes on the clock? Seems like a long time to me. Like you got to know what you're doing. At this point, you have a board, you have your phones. Anyway, get the fuck out of here. No one cares. Everyone's tuned out at this point anyway. All right, guys, thank you for joining me. Thank you all out there for your love, kindness, and support. We appreciate you. Patreon.com/lastdaymedia for early ad-free access and lastdaymedia.store for merch. Until next time, goodbye. Constellation is a product of Last Stand Media and Colin's Last Stand LLC and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show was conceived by and is directed and hosted by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-host is my brother, Dagan Moriarty. The show is produced by Last Stand's executive producer, Dustin Furman, and is edited by associate producer, Ben Smith. All Last Stand theme music is by Ramon Narvaez, and all of our graphics and logos are by Dagan Moriarty. As you know, all of Last Stand Media's podcasts, including Constellation, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest support tier, and we're infinitely grateful for your thoughtful and kind contributions to our independent endeavor.